Chapter 1286. It was just a short interlude to meet the shamans. Just as Thousand Love Emperor had said, many foreign shamans who had reached the Star Lord level would enter the shaman realm and accept the inheritance to become a true member of the shaman tribe. To them, this was a kind of glory and a symbol of strength. Especially when they reached the saint level, they would be allowed to establish their own tribe and form their own lineage. Just like the martial artists in the human mansion, although they were not as talented as the martial artists in the 9 major domains, they had a large base. There would always be 1 or 2 outstanding powerhouses. Just like the humans compared to the shaman tribe and the ancients, their talents might be far inferior, and the percentage of them becoming saints was extremely low. However, due to the large number of human martial artists, many of them became saints or even sage kings. It was the same for the foreign shamans. There will always be foreign shamans who have extraordinary talents. Then, they will become saints and bring glory to their ancestors. They will bring the foreign tribes into the shaman realm and truly soar. Along the way, with Thousand Love Emperor's explanation, everyone learned a lot. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled as he listened. These foreign shamans were actually very similar to him, including Brother Wan. They had all climbed up from the bottom. Therefore, along the way, they met many foreign shamans who were alone, but they did not make things difficult for them, nor did they have the mood to make things difficult for them. Although Jin Ji and Shi Jixin were curious, they had seen many shamans. Other than the rare Emperor River Shaman tribe, they had basically seen all the 12 forms of the shaman tribe of the Candle Dragon. All of them were strong natural warriors, and their killing intent was extremely strong, far surpassing the human heaven-level martial artists. Star Lord-level shamans were 10 to 20 meters tall, and Star Sector-level shamans were 20 to 50 meters tall. Not only were they extremely strong, but they were also very talented. They were born to control fire, were born to be extremely fast, and were born to be able to control wind with their palms, and so on. This was the strongest race in the Douling world, the shaman tribe. There was no other race. After traveling for a few hours, there were no disturbances. The deeper they went, the denser the spirit chi was. The environment was naturally abundant, and the spirit chi was overwhelming. It was obviously a cultivation treasure land. Oh, what a rich earth chi. Lin Feng looked ahead, his eyes twinkling. Looking ahead, there was a dense land in front of them. The power of the earth was thick and heavy. In front of them was a huge hilly area, and behind them was the edge of a desert. Yellow sand rolled about, and it looked very different. Previously, it was still a gurgling waterfall, and the water element was rich. I didn't expect the spiritual energy to change so quickly. Lin Feng nodded his head thoughtfully, his heart becoming clearer. Along the way, the Magus realm had given him quite a lot of surprises. This place was like a small world of its own, and it had everything he needed. For example, the fire elemental essence in the southern region was extremely dense, while the water elemental essence in the eastern region was boundless. Every region had its own characteristics. However, the shaman realm was ever-changing, and there were too many characteristics. No wonder this place can accommodate all kinds of shamans. What a mystical sorcerer realm. It's like a miniature version of the Douling world. It's so mysterious. Lin Feng thought to himself. Suddenly, his eyes burned as he turned his head to look into the distance. Aura. He could feel the aura of a saint. He stopped, and his gaze landed on the vast desert. The aura of a saint was quite dense, and his strength should be around the middle level. At this moment, Thousand Love Emperor also sensed it. Her beautiful eyes flickered as she stopped and said softly, "The first tribe." Her voice was not loud, but everyone heard clearly. Lin Feng nodded slightly. He naturally understood what Thousand Love Emperor meant. Other than the Saint Aura, there were many Star Lords and Star Sector level auras. About a dozen auras were imprinted in his mind and gathered together. It was not a single foreign shaman. He glanced at the compass. It had already been 6 hours. Just as Thousand Love Emperor had said, the 4 of them had truly entered the shaman realm. The shaman tribe. Jin Ji and Shi Jixin sensed it the slowest, but their movements were the fastest. Almost instantly, The two of them turned and sped away. Lin Feng and Thousand Love Emperor did not even have time to react before the two of them disappeared. Oh! Lin Feng's eyes flashed. In his senses, the saint in the desert not far away seemed to have a trace of hostility. He instantly understood. That's right. This is the shaman realm after all, the territory of the shaman tribe. Lin Feng thought. The shaman tribe was already very hostile to humans, and they despised them even more. What would happen if two human experts inexplicably entered the shaman tribe? It was completely conceivable that with the shaman tribe's tyrannical strength, how could they allow others to sneak in? A fierce battle was inevitable. On purpose? Lin Feng looked at Thousand Love Emperor. Seeing the latter's calm expression, he knew what she was thinking. Thousand Love Emperor nodded slightly, and her beautiful eyes flickered. This shaman tribe is not strong. There's only one middle-level saint expert. If I'm not wrong, it should be the Earth Shaman tribe. The foreign shaman tribe. Lin Feng's eyes flickered. It's more than 90% likely. He knew what Thousand Love Emperor meant. The Earth Shaman tribe's defense was strong, but their attack power was ordinary. It was suitable for Shi Jixin and Jin Ji to practice. The two of them had just stepped into the wilderness. Firstly, they had never fought with the shaman tribe. Secondly, their experience and battle experience were too weak. They needed to train. In the future, as the four of them went deeper into the wilderness, they would encounter the shaman tribe sooner or later. Instead of cramming at the last minute, it would be better to get used to it bit by bit. With preparation and experience, they would be able to do it easily. The battle has begun. Lin Feng's eyes were clear. He sensed that the aura in the desert was chaotic, and the angry roars of the shaman tribe could be heard. Three shocking auras mixed and exploded with a powerful force. Especially Jin Ji, his aura was extremely strong and was not inferior to that of the Earth Shaman tribe. Should we go and take a look at them? Thousand Love Emperor hesitated. Lin Feng smiled. Although this training plan was Thousand Love Emperor's idea, she seemed smart but was actually soft-hearted. She was indeed worried about their safety. Trust them. Lin Feng smiled indifferently as he gazed into the distance, his eyes sparkling. If they could not even cross this hurdle, not only would their lives be in danger, but the burden on him and Thousand Love Emperor would also be too heavy. Many times, if a battle really broke out, he might not be able to take care of himself and help the two of them at all. He had to let them face it themselves, control their own destiny, fight. The battle was in deep water. The shaman tribe had no doubt that they had the geographical advantage in the battle. Although Jin Ji and Shi Jixin were both high-level saints, the intermediate saints of the shaman tribe were definitely not weaker than them. With the help of the geographical advantage, it could be said that the two of them had the advantage in numbers. This was a battle with a 50-50 chance of winning. However, the Earth Shaman tribe focused more on defense than offense. Even if the two of them could not win, their lives would not be in danger. This was very important. Whether it was Lin Feng or Thousand Love Emperor, their original intention was to let the two of them train and not to harm them. Advancing and adapting step by step, progressing step by step, was the right way to go. The battle continued for a very long time before it gradually came to an end. We won. Lin Feng smiled. Moreover, it was a great victory. Jin Ji and Shi Jixin's aura did not drop too much, but they had used up a lot of star source energy. The two of them were stronger than he had imagined. This half a year had not been wasted. Thousand Love Emperor smiled faintly, but there was a different look in her eyes. When Lin Feng saw it, a trace of surprise flashed across his heart, but he did not think too much about it. Not far away, Jin Ji and Shi Jixin had already rushed over. Their faces were a little red, and they had just experienced an intense battle. However, their eyes were bright and they were excited. This was their first battle with the shaman tribe, and it was a battle of life and death that was evenly matched. Awesome. Jin Ji clenched his fists, and there was still a murderous look in his eyes. Shi Jixin smiled faintly, and it was a little unnatural. However, the two of them were in a good mood after returning victorious. How do you feel? Lin Feng asked with a smile. It's been a long time since I had such a good battle. Jinji's lips curled up. The earth element here was rich. Although it was beneficial to the Lady Earth Shaman tribe, it was also beneficial to Jinji. He was also a warrior who majored in the Earth Tao. In fact, the main reason why they could win this battle was because of Jinji. Shijishin pursed her lips, slightly embarrassed. Compared to Jinji, who had adapted to killing, she had obviously not entered the state yet. To be precise, she was holding him back. When Lin Feng saw it, he understood in his heart. It's okay, take your time. Lin Feng smiled and patted Shijishin's shoulder. Here, the person who understood Shijishin the most was probably him. When they first met, she wanted to judge him because of his killing aura. She was too kind and could not bear to kill. She was indeed too young and had always grown up under her father's wings. It was no wonder she was like this. I will work hard, Linda go. Shijishin nodded. As smart as she was, she knew what Lin Feng and Qian Lianhuang meant. She bit her lips and looked at everyone. Shijishin's face was serious. I will work hard and train. I will definitely not be a burden to everyone. Lin Feng looked at Qian Lianhuang and smiled. At this moment, a strong aura suddenly appeared. Lin Feng's face changed. The aura of a saint. The aura of the Lady Earth Shaman tribe. 3, 4, 5. Lin Feng's eyes were burning. His heart trembled. Almost in an instant, 6 saint auras appeared. The strongest one was at the peak of the saint level. It was far stronger than the Lady Earth Shaman tribe, who was at the middle of the saint level. In such a short period of time, so many saint-level shamans had appeared. It was a little too unbelievable. Moreover, all of them were from the Lady Earth Shaman tribe. Their appearance seemed to be sudden, but it seemed like, what did it mean? At this moment, Qian Lianhuang and the other two also noticed that Shijishin and Jinji's faces turned pale. Only Qian Lianhuang's face was expressionless. It was as if she had known it all along. Swoosh! Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Qian Lianhuang's expression suddenly appeared in his mind. The light in his eyes flashed, and he understood everything. So that was it. Chapter 12:87. If one did not remove the root of the problem, there would be no end of trouble. Even though Shijishin and Jinji had managed to end the battle with a great victory, the two of them had made a fatal mistake. They were a tribe. Although their only sage had been killed, it did not mean that they did not have the ability to fight back. This was the sorcerer realm. There's a teleportation array. Lin Feng looked at Thousand Love Emperor. Yes, Thousand Love Emperor nodded. Usually, tribes that have a good relationship will exchange teleportation points, including the relationship between master and disciple, or a branch of the tribe. Lin Feng nodded in understanding. When foreign sorcerers entered the sorcerer realm, they would be accepted and become the disciple of a powerful sorcerer. Even if they became sages in the future and formed their own tribe, the relationship between master and disciple would not change. The relationship between sorcerers was quite good. There is also a possibility that this tribe would willingly become a branch of another powerful tribe to enjoy resources, cultivation conditions, and so on. But now, no matter what the reason was, it was no longer important. This was because the enemy's reinforcements were rushing over. 6 Saint Auras were rushing towards them at lightning speed. Their target was rather clear. They were avenging the sage Hutu sorcerer tribe that had just been killed. Damn it! Jinji was so angry that his whole body trembled. It was not fear or terror, but deep regret. Shijishin bit her lips as tears fell uncontrollably. Her delicate face was pale, and her delicate face was filled with anger. Anger at herself. The two of them were naturally intelligent. How could they not understand? It was just that they were too inexperienced. Many times, they were too rash and did not consider the consequences. Usually, even if they got into trouble, their parents would clean up for them. But today, they were in the same team, and because of their mistakes, they had implicated others. There were 6 sages, 1 peak sage, 2 high-level sages, and 3 mid-level sages. Not to mention the 6 of them. Just the 2 high-level sages alone were enough to defeat them. I'm sorry, Linda Gu, Sister Qian. Shijin's tears fell uncontrollably, but there was a hint of persistence in her eyes. Although she was kind and soft-hearted, she knew that she had to bear her own mistakes. "No, it's my fault." Jinji roared and slapped himself hard in the face. "I was too careless. I thought that these small fries wouldn't be able to do anything. Who would have thought?" Gritting his teeth, Jinji's veins bulged. His entire being seemed to have gone mad, and his killing intent was wild. Because of her pride, she blamed herself. Naturally, Jinji would not push the blame onto Shijin. Lin Feng looked at Qianlian Huang and nodded. "Very good." Perhaps Thousand Love Empress's method was a little unreasonable, but it was a solid hit on the heads of the two. It was just like how parents treated their children. Being strict was not necessarily not love. It was better than making the same mistake again in the future and endangering their lives. If he had only told them about it, they wouldn't have left such a deep impression on him. Right now, he believed that this matter would leave a deep imprint in Jinji and Shijin's hearts that they would remember forever. Especially Shijin. The determination and persistence in her eyes came from the bottom of her heart. "It's all right." Lin Feng smiled and nodded at Jinji and Shijin. There was no need for more words. He expressed everything with his actions. Among the four of them, in terms of strength and prestige, he had to take on the responsibility of being the captain. "Leave it to me," Lin Feng said softly. Looking ahead, the 6 saint auras had already arrived like rays of light, their terrifying auras causing the entire land to tremble. There were a total of 6 saint-level experts. They were all from the sorcerer tribe that was proud of their individual strength. Their killing intent was awe-inspiring. Lindigo, Brother Lin, Shijin, and Jinji's expressions changed as they shouted. "Don't worry," Qianlian Huang said calmly, interrupting the two. Looking at Lin Feng, she said, "He is our captain. Believe in Lin Feng. Since he has made this decision, we should support him. At this time, there are only 2 words for you to do: obey." Lin Feng smiled. Taking on the role of captain was not a problem for him. The more people there were, the more opinions there would be. It might be easy for him to suppress the other 3, but in the long run, it would affect the unity, affect their personal relationship, and even cause conflicts. If he took the initiative to be the captain, it would obviously be inappropriate. Taking this opportunity, Qianlian Huang suggested it. Moreover, it would make it easier to deal with many unknown factors, especially prestige. This battle was a good opportunity for him to establish his prestige. Phew! Exhaling lightly, Lin Feng looked at Qianlian Huang and could not help but give her a thumbs up. Although this stunning girl was young, her thoughts were meticulous, and her considerations were watertight. Even though he had an extremely high evaluation of her before, he still underestimated her a little too much. Qianlian Huang had a very high EQ. His heart was slightly alarmed, but there was no time to hesitate. In front of him, like a storm, he could see 6 monsters with human bodies and snake tails rushing over. It was the Hutu sorcerer tribe. Just as well, I can try the new transformation of the fire of rebirth. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. In an instant, like an arrow piercing through the clouds, he shot straight into the clouds. The stellar source energy exploded, and flames covered the sky. Strong flames gathered all over his body. With Shijin and Jinji's shocked gazes, Lin Feng fearlessly faced the 6 Earth Witch clan members. The flames were awe-inspiring. How strong are they? The battle was about to start. The one at the front was the strongest Earth Witch clan member, who was at the peak of the saint level. He had a human body and a snake tail, and he was nearly 100 meters tall. He had already reached the bottleneck of the peak of the saint level. Once his height reached 100 meters, he would be able to advance to the level of a saint king. The earth element was extremely rich. Before he arrived, his huge snake tail had already swept over with a whistling sound. Very fast, very fierce. This was the strength of a saint-level Witch clan member. The wind pressure was strong. It's completely comparable to a beginner Saint King's body. His strength and toughness are all first class, Lin Feng thought to himself. With his speed, it was easy to dodge this tail whip. He could directly use the mist cloud steps to slash it open. However, dodging was not beneficial to him. The Earthwitch clan member in front of him attacked first. With the attack range of the tail whip, he could completely lock onto him. Most importantly, he was not interested in playing with him. If he wanted to fight, he would have to be more ruthless. Yin-yang mirror, yang mirror. Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he suddenly shouted. The stellar source energy quickly bloomed and gathered in the white light. The colors of the yin-yang mirror overlapped like countless pieces of glass. The light kept refracting and instantly formed an intense light array in front of him. The light's source, line of sight, and even the aura were all refracted. With the stellar source energy as the axis, the yang mirror once again released its power. Vision obstruction. Mystery, blood phoenix. Lin Feng shouted. The blood-red light enveloped his entire body as if it was surrounded by blood. The phantom of a blood-soaked phoenix flashed behind him. His body suddenly changed, and his speed soared. There was no need to dodge at all. With a light leap, he charged forward like a shooting star. Instead of retreating, he advanced. Counterattack. The one with the strongest comprehension of the mystery of the body was the blood phoenix that he had comprehended in the blood-boiling secret realm. If he wanted to fight, he would fight to his heart's content. With a transformed body and a transformed power, Lin Feng's blood-red light gathered and his stellar source energy erupted. Like an indestructible bolt of lightning, he appeared out of nowhere. With absolute speed, he escaped from the tail whip attack of the Earth Magi. The attack power of the Earth Magi was too ordinary. Chi, the wind behind him sparkled, and the tail whip was swept clean. The furious roars of the Earth Magi sounded in his ears, as if they were in a state of rage. Lin Feng's eyes flashed indifferently. In terms of a sneak attack, the yang mirror of the yin-yang mirror had an unexpected effect. The aura of the Earth Magi in front of him was already in chaos, and the aura of the Earth was crazily released. However, a roar sounded in his ears. It was clear, as if he was saying that he had the ability to fight head-on. However, in reality, the target of his yang mirror was not him. It was the other 5 Earth Magi. Capture the leader first. Lin Feng thought indifferently. As he sped forward, the blood-red light condensed. Once he was surrounded by these 6 saint-level magi, it would be difficult for him to gain an advantage. And once he dealt with the strongest saint-level Earth Magi, the other 5 Earth Magi would definitely be fearful and fearful. Even if he unleashed his strength, without the sharpest sword, the pressure on him would undoubtedly be much less. He could not afford to make a mistake in the first strike. Bang! The flame of rebirth in his hand lit up. It had already reached the terrifying power of the 80th heaven. It was the power of a true Saint King. With the help of the stellar source energy in his body, Lin Feng's eyes shone with an extremely intense light. Although it was a defensive flame, the flame of rebirth had long surpassed the flame of devouring. Flame of provocation, Lin Feng shouted. This time, he used the flame of rebirth to provoke the flame of devouring. It was the complete opposite, and its power was also different. So powerful. Lin Feng's eyes flickered. The power of the flame of provocation was more than 10 times stronger than before. Its terrifying power was enough to move a Saint King. The rich power of fire spun rapidly, forming a shocking spinning centrifugal force. In the void, a phoenix let out a high-pitched cry. The fusion of the flames caused the illusion of a phoenix to appear faintly. Go! Lin Feng threw out an attack without hesitation. Under the shocked gazes of Shi Jixin and Jin Ji, he clashed directly with the saint-level Earth Magi. A direct attack. Bang! A shocking explosion occurred, and flames danced. The Earth Magi had 6 hands behind their backs and 2 in front of them. The 8 hands formed 8 layers of defensive power, and the Earth aura was extremely strong. A true defensive warrior. In terms of defensive power, the Earth Magi were definitely one of the best among the 12 Magi clans. Although they were restricted by the Mirror of Yang, The saint-level Earth Magi had extremely high vigilance. The power of Earth had already formed a perfect defense. It was as dense as a sealed castle, and there were no gaps at all. How to break it? Break it by force. Huh. Lin Feng attacked like lightning. The power of the flame of provocation was mainly dependent on the power of the main flame. Previously, it was the flame of devouring, but now it was the flame of rebirth. The 80th heaven, the power of a saint king, was the inexhaustible flame of rebirth. Break! Lin Feng descended from the sky like an unparalleled demon king. Boom! Chapter 1288. There were no tricks. It was the most direct, face-to-face collision. Fighting strength with strength. In fact, the leader of the Earth Sorcerer tribe had never thought that a mere human would have such courage and strength. The two of them clashed head-on. There was a huge difference in body size, and it seemed like their strength was not on the same level. However, they did not give in at all. It was an extremely solid defense. Compared to the defense of a Sage King, it was even stronger. Thick layers of Earth elemental energy turned Earth elemental energy into a series of fortresses that couldn't be breached at all. Every time a layer of defense was broken, another layer would appear, and a new layer of defense would appear. Other than the two hands in front of his chest, the Earth Sorcerer tribe had many hands behind his back. His strength could be determined by the number of hands behind his back. The more hands, the stronger his strength. A Sage King would have 6 hands, and a Sage King would have 7. Just like what Shi Jixin and Jin Ji said, in the eyes of humans, the Sorcerer tribe was like a monster. However, this monster's strength was extraordinary. Whoosh! The light dissipated. The effect of a yang mirror slowly weakened. Qian Lian Huang and the other two had already focused their attention. At this time, the other 5 Earth Sorcerer tribe members had also recovered their vision and found Lin Feng. But it was too late. Let's end this. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled, as if looking down at the huge Earth Sorcerer tribe member from the sky. The latter's eyes were filled with shock and unwillingness. His body's defense was completely destroyed. Layers and layers of Earth element power were forcefully exhausted by Lin Feng's endless rebirth flame. Perhaps the rebirth flame was not enough to break through the top-level defense of the Earth Sorcerer tribe. However, no matter how top-level the defense was, it still needed the support of the origin energy of heaven and earth. No matter how strong the Earth Sorcerer tribe's earth was, it could not compare to the endless rebirth flame in Lin Feng's Phoenix natal chart. With the momentum of an emperor descending, Lin Feng faced the attacking Earth Sorcerer tribe member in the most direct and decisive way. Directly killed. Die! Lin Feng's expression was cold. The rebirth flame, with the devouring flame, swallowed the body of the Earth Sorcerer tribe member like a whirlwind. No matter how strong the body was, it was not immortal. Wah! 2 resplendent rays of light flickered. One was like a sphere, the other was flickering with a black radiance. Lin Feng moved, his hand rising and falling. There was a thick and heavy tentacle. It was the essence soul of the Earth Wizard clan. It had evolved from the essence Qi to the saint level, and it was like a human soul. As for his other hand, an Earth-ranked black class innate treasure, Lin Feng was slightly startled. He casually took it and couldn't help but burst into laughter, but he didn't care too much about it. And at this moment, #%, #**, and a stone stirred up 1,000 ripples. The other 5 Earth Magi were furious. Lin Feng's eyes turned cold. Even though he did not understand the language of the shamans, he knew what they were calling out to him. When he killed the hooded shaman, who was at the peak of the saint level, he had only shocked and stunned them. However, when he captured the origin soul of the hooded shaman, he had truly angered them. Primordial spirit. It was like a human soul. It seems that they value the essence soul very much, but they don't value the life and death of their clansmen. Lin Feng thought to himself, his eyes flashing. After killing the hooded shaman, who was at the peak of the saint level, the other 5 hooded shamans attacked him like a gust of wind. The effect of the yang mirror disappeared, and he would be surrounded. Perhaps it was not difficult to kill them, but it was not that easy either. Since you value it so much. Lin Feng held the essence soul in his hand and smiled faintly. He felt a sense of warmth. It seemed to contain quite a lot of energy. Then I'll return it to you. His heart was calm, and Lin Feng's eyes lit up. The essence soul in his hand flew quickly and threw it into the distance. In an instant, the two hooded shamans who were closest to the essence soul turned around and chased after the essence soul that had already flown behind them. They seemed to be in a hurry. As for the other three earth shamans, they were all stunned. However, there was no chance to be distracted during a battle. Chance! Lin Feng's eyes flashed with killing intent, and his body moved like lightning. It did not take him much effort to kill the first hooded shaman, who was at the peak of the saint level. Although he had used up a lot of star source energy, the endless fire of rebirth provided him with an extremely strong, continuous combat power. Facing the 5 hooded shamans in front of him, if he defeated them one by one, it was too easy. The second one, Lin Feng launched his attack. The hooded shaman who was the closest and the fiercest was the second to suffer. The consequences of being distracted were very serious. His strength was far inferior to Lin Feng's, and now he did not have the slightest ability to resist. The fire of provocation was strong and violent. The fire of rebirth combined with the fire of devouring swept over like a tornado and was unstoppable. Boom! Flames filled the sky. They were dumbfounded. Jin Ji and Shi Jixin were suffocating. No one knew better than them how strong the hooded shaman was. The two of them combined their strength and spent a lot of effort to kill a mid-level saint-level hooded shaman. But now, not to mention a mid-level saint-level, even a high-level or peak saint-level hooded shaman would not be able to block Lin Feng's attack. Terrifying. It was a complete massacre. Chi, chi, chi. Everywhere the fiery light passed, nothing could stand in its way. Even Thousand Love Emperor's eyes were sparkling as she stared at the battlefield. So strong. Although Thousand Love Empress had a rough understanding of Lin Feng's strength, she was still shocked when she saw it with her own eyes. No wonder he could kill Saint Lord Murderous Demon and unify the southern region. He's really strong. Thousand Love Emperor's beautiful eyes flashed, and she felt very complicated. In her opinion, Lin Feng should be a competitor, an enemy, someone she had to surpass. But she did not have any hostility towards Lin Feng. Instead, she helped him with all her heart. This feeling was not only not bad, but also warm and comfortable. Looking at Lin Feng in the void, she saw that he was even stronger than half a year ago. In the blink of an eye, another 3 hooded shamans were killed. Only the 2 hooded shamans who were chasing after the essence soul were left. Thousand Love Emperor's beautiful eyes flashed. The outcome was decided. There was no suspense. Even if they surrounded him, the remaining 5 hooded shamans had no chance, let alone being defeated one by one. Facing the hooded shamans who were good at defense and not good at offense, Lin Feng could easily defeat them. With a faint smile, Lin Feng returned triumphantly. This time, not only did he obtain 6 essence souls, but he also obtained 6 Earth-rank Khanate treasures. 1 black grade, 2 white grade, and 3 purple grade. It's all effortless. Lin Feng smiled faintly. He had just auctioned off many Earth-rank Khanate treasures, and now he had returned to his pocket. To him, Earth-rank Khanate treasures were no longer attractive. There was no need to spend time refining and cultivating them. However, to the poor saint-level experts in the southern region, they were indeed rare treasures. Moreover, it was not a bad thing to exchange them for some star crystals. As the saying went, there was no harm in being prepared. No one would complain about having too much money. Everyone says that the shamans are rich. It's true, Lin Feng said softly. According to Lady Nangong, the shamans were the richest among the 3 major human races, followed by the ancient races. Humans were almost eating the leftover bones of the shamans and ancient races. Naturally, they were poor. He had just entered the shaman realm, but he had already obtained 6 Earth Rankanate treasures and a black. It was really an unexpected harvest. He returned triumphantly. Jinji and Shijin's eyes lit up as they stared at Lin Feng as if they were looking at their idol. Even Thousand Love Emperor's beautiful eyes sparkled. "Don't look at me like that." Lin Feng smiled helplessly. "By the way, is there anyone who wants the Khanate treasures?" He raised the 6 beams of light in his hand and spread them out for everyone to see. Of course, he would not take all the treasures for himself. Money was just a worldly possession. He had nothing to be reluctant to give to his own people. The 3 of them shook their heads at almost the same time. Lin Feng smiled, but did not force them. Needless to say, Thousand Love Emperor and Jinji and Shijin came from rather good families. His father was a renowned saint, so he naturally did not lack treasures. "Then I'll keep them first." Lin Feng smiled faintly and kept the Khanate treasures. "If you need them, just ask me." "Okay," Thousand Love Emperor replied, breaking the silence. Shijin and Jinji smiled as well. However, no one would be so thick-skinned to ask Lin Feng to take them. They would feel guilty if they took them. "I'm sorry, Lindigo. It's all our fault." Shijin pursed her lips and said guiltily. "All right, there's no need to be so formal with us." Lin Feng interrupted and smiled at the 2 of them. "Thanks to you, we've gained a lot this time." Lin Feng suddenly thought of something and took out his primordial soul. His gaze fell on Thousand Love Emperor. "By the way, Love Emperor, do you know what this primordial soul does? Why is the sorcerer tribe so anxious? If it was just to preserve the dignity of the deceased tribe members, it would be too pretentious to not let their souls be destroyed. There is obviously a reason for this. It's very useful." Thousand Love Emperor's beautiful eyes flashed. The primordial soul contains all the essence of the sorcerer tribe. Once it loses its physical body, it will become an ownerless object. "You mean?" Lin Feng seemed to understand. Thousand Love Emperor nodded slowly and said, "It's the inheritance of the sorcerer tribe." "Oh." Lin Feng was surprised. Shijin and Jinji beside him also opened their mouths slightly. Thousand Love Emperor's clear eyes looked at the 3 of them and explained, "As long as it's a sorcerer tribe member of the same tribe, they can absorb the primordial soul and obtain the inheritance of the deceased sorcerer tribe. Of course, there's a certain amount of danger. However, once the inheritance is successful, one's strength will increase by leaps and bounds. For any sorcerer tribe member who hasn't reached the sage level, this is a great opportunity." Lin Feng nodded in realization. Indeed, who wouldn't want to be able to break through to the sage level quickly and reach the highest level of strength in the Douling world? But why are the sage-level sorcerer tribe members so interested in this primordial soul? Lin Feng couldn't help but be curious when he thought of the expressions of the Earth's sorcerer tribe members who were fighting over it. It's very simple. You can either keep it for your family members or go to Yin Imperial City to sell it. You can get a good price. Thousand Love Emperor said slowly. Everyone's eyes flashed with interest. Lin Feng was also interested. Primordial souls could be bought and sold. And it could be bought and sold in Yin Imperial City in the Sorcerer Tribe. It's really interesting. Nodding lightly, Lin Feng pondered. Suddenly, he remembered what Thousand Love Emperor had said. His eyes flashed, and he couldn't help but be stunned. Wait, primordial soul, ownerless object? Where the essence of the Sorcerer Tribe lies. Brothers and sisters, give me a few monthly tickets to guarantee Little Pig's bottom line. Chapter 1289. This description was very familiar. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled, and with a thought, his origin soul appeared in his hand. The warm feeling brought with it a rich aura of power. It was not the existence of a soul, but it was like the meaning of a soul. The rich life force gave him a strong feeling, as if it was another strange existence, the blood essence of a divine beast. It was very similar. What will happen if I use the Witch Clan's origin soul to replace the blood essence of a divine beast? Lin Feng thought. In his mind, the image of a divine beast's blood essence condensing appeared, and he started to simulate it. However, he frowned slightly. It was not easy. It seemed similar, but there were many subtle differences. Maybe the two were the same kind of existence. But if he wanted to condense the witch clan's origin soul, there were many steps that had to be changed, and many secondary materials had to be changed. Nodding thoughtfully, Lin Feng slowly stopped thinking and looked at the witch clan's origin soul in his hand in a daze. It should be possible to replace him, Lin Feng thought. As a weapon refiner, he was very clear that the materials of weapon refinement could be changed, including the secondary materials and the main materials. The premise was that they were of the same kind, and the witch clan's origin soul and the blood essence of a divine beast were compatible. However, being able to replace was one thing. To control the astral treasure Qi and change the ability of its main materials, he still had a long way to go. However, this was clearly an unpredictable future path with limitless potential. There were far more Saint King-level witches than Saint King-level divine beasts. I wonder if the extreme fire silkworm can be used as a replacement? Lin Feng thought, and his eyes flashed. Of the three main materials, he lacked the extreme fire silkworm the most. The first battle after entering the witch clan realm, it could be said that there was no danger, and everyone's harvest was not small. Qian Lian Huang frankly told Shi Jixin and Jin Ji. In fact, the two of them had already guessed it and did not blame Qian Lian Huang. They knew that Qian Lian Huang's intentions were for their own good. She used the most practical and vivid experience to teach them a solid lesson. There was no gap. They were close in age, and they were teammates and friends. If you have something to say, just say it. There's nothing that can't be solved. Being secretive is just pretentious. Just as Thousand Love Emperor had expected, after this battle, everyone had officially recognized Lin Feng as their leader. Their respect for him had increased, and the last unstable factor in the four-man team had been completely removed. This trip to the Sorcerer Tribe's territory was not a joke. If he was not careful, he might die here. How could he not be cautious and overcautious? The storm passed. To Lin Feng and Qian Lian Huang, this was merely a small episode. But to Jin Ji and Shi Jixin, it was an unforgettable memory. People always change. With time, experience, and so on, it slowly changed. This was especially so for Shi Jixin, who had changed the most. When she had entered the Sorcerer Tribe's territory, she had looked like she was going on a trip. She had been in high spirits. However, ever since she caused trouble this time, she had suddenly quieted down. It was as if she was thinking about something or reflecting on something. There were still traces of tears on her delicate face. It had a profound meaning. Without Shi Jixin's noise, the journey became much quieter. Even Jin Ji's eyes revealed a hint of killing intent, as he truly felt the meaning of this journey. They would slowly grow up. They would gain some things and lose some things at the same time. Taoyuan, stargazing platform. This was one of the forbidden places of Taoyuan. Previously, Emperor Yao liked to look up at the starry sky from the stargazing platform. It was as if he was in the starry sky and was in harmony with heaven and earth. And now, it had become Shun's newest hobby. It replaced the research of formations, and he enjoyed it even more. Looking at the stars in the starry sky, Shun's eyes were clear and sparkling. There was no turning back. The future of the southern region, and even the future of the human tribe, is in the hands of Lin Feng, Shun murmured softly, his eyes shining slightly. In the void, the Emperor's star that symbolized Lin Feng was much brighter than before. Even the surrounding stars on the left and right were shining slowly, like the rising sun. Although it was far from the Demon Clan's Emperor's star, it had grown strong. A chance of survival. But we have to fight. Is it really possible for humans to survive this war? The clarity in Shun's eyes was slightly blurred. In his heart, personal honor and disgrace were no longer that important. The most important thing was whether or not the human race could continue to exist, and whether or not they could survive this world-destroying war between the liches and demons. With the two emperors' stars in chaos, everything had become unknown. No one knew how the gears of fate would turn. Whether it is the brightness of the stars or the breadth of the constellation, the southern region is really— Shun smiled helplessly, but he also knew that the southern region was indeed weak. It was even weaker than the 8 Great Territories Alliance of the human tribe. If it was not for the pride of the Emperor's star, Lin Feng, it would not have existed at all. In comparison, the ancient tribe was full of vitality under the illumination of the new star. The wizard tribe had a constellation that was only second to the demon tribe. They were like overlords, standing tall and standing on equal footing with the demon tribe. Shun's eyes suddenly brightened. At this moment, the wizard tribe's star, the ancient tribe's star, and the human tribe's emperor's star were strangely connected in a line. The emperor's star, which represented Lin Feng, was in the middle. The wizard tribe's star was in the upper left, the ancient tribe's star was in the lower left, and the demon tribe's brightest emperor's star was on the far right. But now, the 3 bright stars of the 3 great clans were connected in a straight line. They were clearly separated from the demon tribe's emperor's star. This is— Shun's expression changed, and his heartbeat quickened. He could vaguely feel that the weather was changing, as if something was about to happen. He knew why Lin Feng's emperor's star was moving. It was because Lin Feng had entered the wizard tribe's realm, but he did not expect that the weather would change so drastically because of this. The 3 points and the lines seemed to be led by a force, causing the heavens and earth to change. Boom! The starry sky changed suddenly. In the giant rock hall in the wizard tribe's realm, the 12 heavenly pillars shone brightly. 12 different colors formed a screen in the sky. In the heavenly pillars, there was a round plate with various carvings on it. A strange man was sitting cross-legged on it. He was covered in light. He wore a golden robe and was filled with immense energy. He was the highest decision-maker of the wizard tribe, the wizard emperor. After the second war of the wizard tribe, he had great courage and wisdom. He even had the power of a starry sky expert. Suddenly, his eyes opened slowly. It was as if a heavenly eye had appeared. Through the light, 2 extremely intense lights seemed to penetrate everything. Instantly, the aura of the entire giant rock hall was suppressed. The ancient tribe— whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. His body was like an illusion. He walked in the air as if he was stepping on a colorful light. The fog was so dense that no color could be seen, but 2 figures could be vaguely seen, competing with each other. However, one of the figures was completely at a disadvantage. He was resisting everywhere. In the battle, it was as if he was being toyed with. He did not have any power to resist at all. Upon closer inspection, it was a white-haired young man who was being controlled. The divine envoy me. The cold and evil aura had already disappeared without a trace. Even the eye patch had disappeared without a trace. Me clenched his teeth. His face was pale. He kept spinning his body to form layers of defense. But in the face of the endless attacks, he was unable to continue. He was about to lose. Suddenly, the surrounding aura paused for a moment. The afterimage suddenly disappeared. He was slightly stunned and puzzled. Behind him, a vigorous figure slowly walked out. He had delicate features and was extremely handsome. His skin was white, and he looked both righteous and evil. He wore silver diamond-shaped earrings. With his hands behind his back, it was impossible to tell whether he was a man or a woman. Me immediately sensed it. He turned around and looked at the handsome young man in a daze. Me, get ready. We will set off immediately. The handsome young man's voice was indifferent. Where are we going, young master? Me asked almost instinctively. The handsome young man's chest rose and fell slightly. He squinted his eyes, and there was a flash of evil in them. The sorcerer tribe realm. The sorcerer tribe realm. Bang, bang, bang. His heart was beating extremely fast. Lin Feng stopped, and his expression changed. He pressed his hand to his chest in confusion. What was going on? The same confusion came from Qian Lian Huang and the other 2. Seeing Lin Feng stop, the 3 of them looked at each other and turned to look at Lin Feng with puzzlement. What's wrong, Lin Feng? Qian Lian Huang asked softly. I don't know either. Lin Feng frowned slightly. He hesitated for a moment before saying, "All of a sudden, I felt my heart beating faster for some reason. It's like there's a strange feeling in my heart." Lin Feng's eyes flashed as he pursed his lips. It was not the first time he had such a feeling. Whenever there was imminent danger, his body would warn him. But this time, it doesn't feel like a warning. Lin Feng thought. The feeling was very clear and natural. Rather than calling it a warning, it would be more accurate to call it joy and excitement. But why would he have such a feeling? Linda Gu, was it during the battle just now? Shi Jixin said hesitantly. Is it a relapse, Brother Lin? Jin Ji's face was filled with worry. No. Lin Feng shook his head. Bang, bang, bang. The feeling was getting clearer and clearer. He slowly closed his eyes. It seemed to be a subconscious action, but it also seemed like his body was telling him to do so. Rays of light flashed in his mind. Stars appeared like smoke and clouds. He was in a slightly nervous but excited state. Got it. Lin Feng moved. In his senses, 2 stars flashed one after another. One was huge and bright, the other was small and bright. Then another star appeared. In terms of size, it was in between the two. In terms of position, it was also in between the two. The 3 stars resonated with each other and formed a straight line. The light of the stars connected, and there was a strange power. It was an extreme light that shone between the 3 stars. What was it? What a feeling! Lin Feng muttered. The light that was formed by the convergence of the 3 stars was like a star of hope, bringing with it endless power. It gave him a familiar feeling, but it was also quite strange. What is it? Lin Feng was extremely curious. There must be a demon when things are abnormal. Chapter 1290. Wizard Tribe Realm, Giant Rock Hall. Ha 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 ha. The arrogant laughter seemed to shake the space. The 12 ancient pillars shone brightly. The engravings on them reflected the sky. Among them, the ancient pillar that symbolized Dijiang shone the brightest. The light circle in the center slowly dissipated. A man with 6 legs and 4 wings walked out. He looked like a demon god. He seemed to have no face, but his face was exquisite and delicate. It was like the moon in the water, giving people a feeling of illusion. Dijiang Wizard Tribe. He was the emperor of the Wizard Tribe. Dijiang, the Wizard Tribe, was created by the 12 ancestral wizards. It had been passed down in the Douling world for many years. Any Wizard Tribe expert who reached the peak of the Sage King level would be a Wizard King and be given the title of Ancestral Wizard. There were strong and weak Wizard Kings among the 12 Wizard Kings. The strongest person would be chosen through battle. He would be the Wizard Emperor. Wizard Emperor Dijiang. It could be said that he was the strongest and most famous existence in the Douling world. The Wizard Tribe, under his rule, occupied the hinterland of the Douling world. When everyone was not optimistic about the second war between the Wizard Tribe and the Demon Tribe, he came up with a series of brilliant plans and defeated the Demon Tribe, who was several times stronger than the Wizard Tribe, into the bottomless abyss. He obtained a historic victory. He was a hero of the world. God bless the Wizard Tribe. Dijiang laughed heartily. His eyes shone like the sun. Not only did he allow me to complete the 12 earthly fiends' blood sacrifice, but now the divine item is about to appear and help the Wizard Tribe defeat the Demon Tribe. If I can get the place where the divine item is refined this time, I can not only defeat the Demon Tribe and make them regret it, I can also turn defense into offense and exterminate this group of lowly beasts who are as weak as humans in the Douling world. Ha ha! His heroic laughter was wanton and wild. However, he had the qualifications and ability to be so arrogant. Wizard Emperor Dijiang was the existence that the Demon Tribe feared the most. His body stepped out of the 12 heavenly pillars. As Dijiang left, the 12 heavenly pillars slowly lost their luster. The human figure that was originally above had disappeared. Only faint engravings were left, shining with magical light. Peach Garden, stargazing platform. Shun stared intently at the starry sky, his expression growing more and more solemn. At this moment, the 3 shining stars were connected by a strange force, forming a dazzling straight line. The flashes of light merged into one, overshadowing the brightest star in the starry sky, the demonic Emperor's star. It was as if they wanted to do something. If Lin Feng and the ancient sorcerer tribe form an alliance, will they be able to defeat the demon clan? A thought popped up in Shun's mind, and he frowned. The stars were like this, but that didn't mean it was the truth. What's more, Shun wasn't very confident in his own judgment. If that's the case, it's impossible for the heavenly secret saint sovereign to not be able to predict it. Shun nodded thoughtfully. This constellation should be a coincidence, and it isn't destined by the heavens. On top of that, the Witch Emperor's shrewdness and experience are unfathomable. Cooperating with him is like asking a tiger for its skin. You won't even know if you're eaten by him at any moment. There's still no news from Master and the other sacred lords of the 9 major domains. When he thought up to here, Shun couldn't help but purse his lips tightly while his heart twisted. Deep hatred. How could he not know that so much time had passed, but there was still no news from Master Emperor Yao and the others? There was a high chance that they were dead. The culprit was almost certainly the Witch Emperor. The sorcerer tribe didn't even have the intention to hide it. They summoned the 9 sacred lords to the sorcerer tribe realm and then disappeared without a trace. They didn't even give any explanation. Anyone could tell that something was wrong. Phew. Shun let out a long breath, and his expression kept changing. Forget it. There's no point in thinking about it. It's better to focus on the control of the southern region. As for the rest, I just need to trust Lin Feng. Shun nodded and said softly. Although Lin Feng was very young and inexperienced, Shun had an inexplicable trust in him. This feeling couldn't be described, but it could be summed up in 3 words: a sense of security. I'm counting on you, future human emperor. Shun smiled and turned to leave. Now that he had thought it through and understood, he didn't need to worry anymore. There were some things that he couldn't solve even if he knew. It was beyond his power. His lonely figure gave people a sense of steadiness. Shun didn't see that at this moment, as he left, the 3 points in the void connected together. The light gathered and condensed into a bright light spot in the sky. It was like the purest gathering of energy, high up in the sky like the sun. Boundless light. Sorcerer tribe realm. Lin Feng was in a mysterious state. The feeling of his heart palpitating was so clear and natural. When he looked up at the sky, it was as if he could see through the layers of clouds and see the boundless starry sky. What a strange feeling. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. In the distant starry sky, it was as if something was calling him, something was attracting him. It was like the most direct attraction between the 2 sides of a magnetic pole. It was a call between 2 hearts. The attraction was secondary. The most important thing was the power that was calling him was extremely powerful. It's so strong. It's definitely the power of a sage king. Moreover, it's as if it's just growing and is far from its limit. What is this? Lin Feng's eyes were sparkling. He was extremely moved. In his eyes, there was also curiosity. Beside him, Jinji and Shijixin also looked up at Lin Feng. However, when they looked at the boundless clear sky, their faces were full of question marks. They couldn't see anything at all. Huff! Exhaling lightly, the light in Lin Feng's eyes slowly disappeared. His expression returned to normal. At this moment, although his heart still palpitated, it wasn't as deep as before. It was as if it was just a moment of wonder, but it was meaningful. Let's go. Lin Feng looked at Qian Lianhuang. The latter's beautiful eyes lit up slightly. She nodded and didn't ask any more questions. Jinji and Shijixin also came back to their senses and shouted, "Wait for us." Then they hurriedly followed. The 4 of them walking together was a beautiful sight to behold. "All right, Lindigo, what were you looking at just now?" "Yeah, Brother Lin, is there something good in the sky?" Everyone was talking at once. The 2 of them were very curious. After this small interlude, the battle just now was overshadowed. Lin Feng smiled and said softly, "It's nothing. There must be something." "That's right, don't lie to us." The 2 of them kept muttering, but returned to normal. Lin Feng and Qian Lian Huang looked at each other and smiled faintly. The group became normal again. It was quite lively. It was an unintentional willow that had turned into a shade. The starry sky changed. Shun and the others weren't the only ones who noticed. A stone stirred up 1,000 ripples. Everyone, including the 8 Great Territory Alliance, the neutral forces, and even the Demon Clan, noticed this strange celestial phenomenon. After all, this wasn't too complicated. Any ancient martial art practitioner who had studied divination would be able to see it. In the void, the strange phenomenon kept appearing. It was as if there was a huge banner hanging on the wall, and it was as clear as day. However, it was one thing to know, but it was another to act on it. At this moment, the strange phenomenon still hadn't appeared. According to the location of the converging light, it was precisely where the sorcerer tribe's territory was. How many powerful people could enter? And how many powerful people had the courage to fight for this strange phenomenon? No one knew. What was certain was that the people who came were definitely not weak. They were either very brave or very powerful, or they were extremely confident. In the southern region, whoosh, a black figure appeared. It was bloodthirsty and cruel. The black cloak carried a cold, murderous aura. It was like a ghost in the night. Around the teleportation array, the smell of blood was extremely strong. Countless powerful people were lying in a pool of blood. Their eyes were wide open, as if they had died with grievances. However, this was their fate. If they weren't powerful enough, they were destined to be unable to control their own fates. Step. The black figure stepped into the teleportation array, his eyes cold. He pressed a button skillfully. The teleportation array flashed white, and the black figure instantly disappeared. The Alchemist Alliance, like the Union of Artificers, they were also backed by the Sorcerer Tribe and had the right to enter the Sorcerer Tribe's territory directly. In the main hall, a beautiful lady in plain clothes clasped her hands together and said softly, "Thank you, Senior. You don't have to be so polite, Saintess." A kind-looking elder smiled and said, "Be careful on this trip." "I will," the beautiful lady in plain clothes said softly. Then she clasped her hands together. Her face shone with a holy radiance. Her beautiful eyes lit up slightly as she nodded and stepped onto the teleportation array. In the Blood Tiger tribe, creak, the heavy door was pushed open. It was a huge sacred palace. It flashed with a dazzling blood-red light. A figure slowly walked out of it. He had an unruly aura that made people shudder. Quiken, the son of Kuei Zheng. More accurately, it should be the demon Kuei Tuesday. After devouring Quiken, Kuei Tu stayed in seclusion and secretly accumulated his strength. After a few rounds of seclusion, he had recovered 90% of his strength. He could protect himself. Sage King Realm. Young Master. Young Master. In the main hall, everyone bowed respectfully. With a cold smile, Kuei Tu walked out of the palace proudly. Although it was not the best time, Kuei Tu could no longer wait for the strange phenomenon in the sky. The compass in his hand flashed. Kuei Tu slowly pressed it. His eyes flashed. There were only 2 simple words. "Let's go." The demon army. They split into 2 groups. One group chased after the enemy, while the other went straight for the wizard tribe. They did not hide their tracks in the slightest. However, no one had seen the commander of the demon clan. Even the demon emperors, demon kings, and demon stars had not seen the appearance of the new commander. Even the whereabouts of his right-hand man, the bull demon king, had been a mystery. At this moment, where were they and where were they going? No one knew. Just like the war between the wizard tribe and the demon tribe that could destroy the world, no one knew what the final outcome would be. Similarly, what kind of changes would the sudden, strange phenomenon in the sky bring? What kind of chain reaction would it cause in the war between the wizard tribe and the demon tribe was a mystery. With the chaotic changes of the 2 emperor stars, the gears of fate had already changed. They were turning toward an unknown future. The heavens were no longer destined. Everything would be decided by strength and strength. The strong controlled fate. Chapter 1291. Along the way, under the guidance of Lin Feng and Thousand Love Emperor, Jin Ji and Shi Jixin grew up quickly. In fact, in terms of aptitude, the two of them were only slightly inferior to Thousand Love Emperor. As they both belonged to the 12 constellations of the royal path, they were able to unleash their abilities very early on. Regardless of whether it was Jin Ji or Shi Jixin, they both had their trump cards. Although they were only at the advanced saint level, they were much stronger than human experts of the same level. In a one-on-one battle, you should be able to compete with the sorcerer tribe of the same level. Lin Feng's eyes flickered as he spoke slowly. As time passed, he had a thorough understanding of the two's abilities. Jin Ji's combat ability was slightly stronger, but Shi Jixin was slightly stronger in terms of using treasures. According to his observation, Shi Jixin was also slightly stronger than Jin Ji in terms of true secret techniques. However, in general, if the two of them were to fight to the death, it was still unknown who would emerge victorious. If the two of them worked together, they would be able to compete with Thousand Love Emperor. However, the chances of winning should be around 30 to 70. He did not have a deep understanding of Thousand Love Emperor's abilities. In the 3 days of adventure, Thousand Love Emperor basically did not use much of her abilities. She was merely showing off her skills, but she was still overwhelmingly powerful. These monsters are too terrifying. Shi Jixin's eyes flickered. That's right. When we met the Emperor River Sorcerer tribe previously, we were completely no match for them. Jin Ji said in distress. Jin Ji's speed was not that fast as he majored in the earth element. When he met the Emperor River Sorcerer tribe, he was indeed unable to defeat them. Otherwise, how could they be called the strongest tribe? Thousand Love Emperor said softly. At the same level, the Sorcerer tribe is definitely stronger than the Ancient tribe. They are only slightly inferior to the divine beasts and ferocious beasts that were born from the chi of heaven and earth. Of course, this is just a normal situation. It can't be generalized. For example, even the weakest human race can have a super strong warrior like Lin Feng. As she spoke, the three of them looked at Lin Feng. Jin Ji and Shi Jixin nodded solemnly. They were extremely confident in Lin Feng. What a joke. Lin Feng could defeat the King Sage Sorcerer tribe. Even though the shaman had escaped with heavy injuries in the end, Lin Feng's victory without any injuries had completely shocked the two of them. You guys aren't bad either. Lin Feng smiled and didn't explain too much. Speaking of which, he wasn't a pure human. Half of his original body was of the ancient race, and the blood of the divine beast, the phoenix, was fused with the body of a starry sky expert, and the inheritance of his master, the ancient divine beast, the thunder centipede. In terms of the true human race, Qian Lian Huang was the strongest in his opinion. She was the true genius of the human race that was rarely seen in tens of thousands of years. By the way, Sister Qian, are the demons strong in a one-on-one battle? Shi Jixin asked curiously. Jin Ji's eyes lit up. He was also rather curious. Strong, but also not strong. Qian Lian Huang said softly. Unlike the 12 clans of the Sorcerer tribe, whose innate talents and strength are similar, and unlike the humans, who only differentiate between men and women, the Demon Clan's racial system is too huge, and it has the trapezoidal structure. The strongest Demon Emperor bloodline is comparable to the strongest bloodline of the Sorcerer tribe, such as the Emperor River Sorcerer tribe. Even the Demon King bloodline is comparable to the ordinary bloodline of the Sorcerer tribe, such as the Zhurong Sorcerer tribe and the Gonggong Sorcerer tribe. However, most of the Demon Clan's bloodline is not very good. More than 90% of them are inferior to the ancient race's bloodline. There are even many demon clans that find it difficult to transform. They can't even compare to us humans. Listening to Qian Lian Huang's words, the group moved forward slowly. The 3-day journey wasn't easy, but it wasn't difficult either. After all, they had just entered the Sorcerer tribe. It was quite big. It's very important to familiarize yourself with the 12 Sorcerer tribes, their innate abilities, attacks, and so on. Qian Lian Huang tirelessly took care of Jin Ji and Shi Jixin and did her best to teach them. It wasn't that she was afraid that they would be a burden, but that she really treated them like her younger siblings. Cold on the outside, but warm on the inside, Lin Feng said softly with a faint smile. Qian Lian Huang seemed arrogant, but she was actually approachable. She seemed cold and inhumane, but she was considerate and considerate of others. With her in the group, it could be said that she had taken a lot of pressure off him. Jin Ji and Shi Jixin were also very respectful to Qian Lian Huang, and they listened to her patiently. It could be said that the first lesson had completely convinced them. Actually, it wasn't a bad thing for them. Oh, Lin Feng was startled as he pondered. His eyes narrowed as he looked ahead. He could vaguely feel the presence of many auras. There were at least 1,000 of them. His gaze landed on Qian Lian Huang, who smiled back and nodded gently. Lin Feng suddenly asked, "Have we arrived at Yan Imperial City?" The moment he said that, Jin Ji and Shi Jixin's eyes lit up in surprise. Unknowingly, 3 days had passed. These 3 days were very long. "Not yet, but almost there," Qian Lian Huang said softly. "It's not Yan Imperial City in front, but an oasis. It's a neutral teleportation formation at the border of the Sorcerer Tribe's territory. Through the teleportation formation, we can reach Yan Imperial City." Everyone nodded. Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he looked at Qian Lian Huang. Obviously, it wasn't her first time here. These things couldn't be taught by words. They could only be learned from books. Oasis? What kind of place was that? Lin Feng was deep in thought as he looked ahead. As he continued to move forward, he could feel it more clearly. There were more than 1,000 auras. Soon, he could feel more than 10,000 auras. According to his estimation, there should be tens of thousands of martial artists in the oasis. It wasn't just the Sorcerer Tribe. Everyone, remember that you can't fight in the oasis. This is the rule of the Sorcerer Tribe, Qian Lian Huang instructed. Yes. Jin Ji and Shi Jixin replied in unison. Lin Feng also nodded. There was such a rule. That was interesting. Lin Feng smiled. The distance wasn't too far away. As expected, Lin Feng's gaze deepened as he looked into the distance. This place was bustling with activity. The greenery was boundless, and it looked lively. It made one feel relaxed and happy. Rather than calling an oasis, it would be better to call it a simple and crude village. There were many houses here, and many peddlers were calling out to each other. It was extremely lively. Wow! Oh! Shi Jixin and Jin Ji's eyes widened in surprise. From the looks of it, this place was like a human market, full of dazzling goods. However, the goods sold here were all extraordinary. There were all kinds of rare star fruits, materials, pills, and so on. There were even many Earth-rank astral treasures for sale. And the martial artists who were buying and selling were even more complicated. There were Sorcerer Tribe, Ancient Tribe, Human Tribe, and even other neutral races. Other than the Demon Tribe, there were almost all of them. There are so many races that I have never heard of. Their auras are so unique. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. All along, he had only paid attention to the Demon Tribe, Sorcerer Tribe, and Ancient Tribe. He had neglected the other races that lived in the Douling world. In fact, other than these two races, there were many other existences, such as divine beasts and ferocious beasts, as well as various kinds of wood spirits. Perhaps it was difficult for them to cultivate, but it didn't mean that there were no saint-level existences. There are many oases like this, Qian Lian Huang said softly. However, the oases don't flourish just because they are close to the Sorcerer Tribe's territory. On the contrary, the closer to the border of the Sorcerer Tribe's territory, the more flourishing the oases are. Lin Feng listened and nodded slowly. In fact, it was easy to understand that the oases flourished because there were many more neutral races, Ancient Tribe, and even humans. Of course, it wasn't that easy to get here. For example, the 4 of them had traveled a long distance to get here. Those who weren't strong enough might have been killed by the Sorcerer Tribe along the way. Normally, the Union of Artificers and the Alchemist Union trade in the various oases. Qian Lianhuang's beautiful eyes sparkled. Because of my father, I have entered the oases a few times. However, I have always teleported here directly. This is the first time I have come from the border. You can teleport directly? Jin Ji asked in surprise. Yes, only for special people. Qian Lianhuang said slowly. The different races have different statuses in the sorcerer tribe's territory. Humans are basically the lower class. It seems that the sorcerer emperor despises humans. Other than the blacksmiths and alchemists who trade, the rest of the martial artists have to enter from the border. I see. Lin Feng suddenly understood. What about Yin Imperial City? Lin Feng thought for a while and asked casually. It's very special. Qian Lianhuang's beautiful eyes flashed. Yin Imperial City is located in the depths of the sorcerer tribe's territory. However, it's special because it can be entered through a teleportation formation. If the oases are villages, then Yin Imperial City is the real city. Oh, Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. So you're saying there are more trading goods in Yin Imperial City? Lin Feng looked at Qian Lianhuang. Yes. Qian Lianhuang nodded. It's much better than the oases. Regardless of price or quantity, there are all kinds of goods. In Yin Imperial City, there are even heaven-class treasures that are auctioned. See, everyone took in a deep breath. They were even more curious about Yin Imperial City and looked forward to it. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go. Jin Ji said impatiently. Shi Jixin was also excited. What are the requirements to enter? Lin Feng looked at Qian Lianhuang, his eyes sparkling. Jin Ji and Shi Jixin were stunned. Qian Lianhuang answered, Not much. 1 primordial spirit per person is enough. Primordial spirit. Primordial spirits that only the saint-level sorcerer tribe members had. Not only were Jin Ji and Shi Jixin dumbfounded, but even Lin Feng couldn't react. This was too shocking. To enter Yin Imperial City, one had to meet such a ridiculous requirement? This was the sorcerer tribe territory. Wouldn't the existence of Yin Imperial City encourage the strong to hunt down the sorcerer tribe sages? Lin Feng frowned, feeling puzzled. But in an instant his eyes turned cold, and he completely understood. Using battle to nurture battle. Lin Feng thought to himself, the sorcerer tribe doesn't lack sages. What they want the most is a true strong person who can fight against 100 and be invincible. Using the flames of battle to temper one's body and baptize one's will in battle is the goal of the sorcerer tribe. Anyway, even if a sorcerer tribe sage dies, his primordial spirit can still return. In the future, after absorbing the primordial spirit, another sorcerer tribe sage will be born. On the other hand, the strong people of the other tribes will become training partners and may lose their lives at any time. What a deep trap! Lin Feng's eyes sparkled as he thought to himself. Chapter 1292. Actually, the strongest of the sorcerer tribe are the Sage Kings. If you want to kill the sorcerer tribe, you can just kill the saint-level sorcerer tribe members. The sorcerer tribe doesn't care at all and won't pursue the matter too much, as long as it's not a massacre. But killing a Sage King-level sorcerer is difficult. Qian Lianhuang slowly said. Everyone nodded. Lin Feng was even more clear about this. In the past 3 days, he had bumped into a Saint King-level sorcerer tribe powerhouse. Even though he was much stronger than that Saint King-level sorcerer tribe powerhouse, that Saint King-level sorcerer tribe powerhouse had an Earth-rank gold treasure. In the end, he had managed to escape. The goal of the sorcerer tribe was very clear. Their main goal was to obtain Saint King-level powerhouses. Indeed, the Saint King realm was an entire level higher than the Saint realm. Moreover, a Saint-grade origin soul could be absorbed by a StarCraft-grade origin soul. So what about a Saint King-grade origin soul? Only Saint-level experts could absorb it. The difference in base ratio was too great. However, not all forces are like this. Thousand Love Sovereign shrugged. We humans are in the inferior category again. Lin Feng smiled bitterly. Qian Lianhuang nodded and said, Yes, the neutral forces that have a good relationship with the wizard tribe can enter without any conditions. However, The human powerhouses, even if they are at the Saint King level, have to follow the rules and hand over an original soul. Lin Feng nodded his head. So be it. I still have to make a trip to Yin Imperial City. As one of the most famous regions of the shaman tribe, as well as the only place where humans gathered, he definitely had to go to a place where he could live. Perhaps Ziyao was living there. Moreover, he also wanted to take a look at the trading goods there. Khanate treasures aside, perhaps the extreme fire silkworm would be available for trade. Right, let's go. Jean Ji's eyes lit up. I'm looking forward to it, Shi Jixin said excitedly. Indeed, it was something to look forward to. Seeing such a bustling scene in the oasis, one could imagine the liveliness of Yin Imperial City. What kind of wonders would there be? Thousand Love Empress nodded. Let's go to the teleportation array. Everyone agreed. Let's walk and see. It was not crowded, and there were quite a lot of people coming and going around. The witch race and the ancient race made up the majority. There were also quite a number of powerful human beings, half of them Star Ocean Realm and half of them Saint Realm. Some came for business, some came for training, some came for treasures, and some came for cultivation. Their goals were uncertain. Unless they can teleport directly, they usually travel in groups. Thousand Love Emperor explained. Everyone nodded. Lin Feng also understood. With so many supercluster level martial artists, if they had come alone from the border, perhaps not even their bones would remain. Basically, no matter which race it was, there were no warriors below the Star Sea level. There were tens of thousands of warriors here and hundreds of Saint-level warriors. It was quite terrifying. Moreover, the items being traded were all luxury goods with extremely high prices. Jingshi, medicine pills, astral treasures, not a single one was not rare goods. They were completely not on the same level as human territory. Basically, one could buy and one could sell. Both of them were valuable items that could be auctioned off in human territory. But here, they were sold like jewels. What a huge difference! Lin Feng couldn't help but sigh. When would the southern region have such a scale? That would be great. Not only Lin Feng sighed, but Jean Ji and Shi Jixin also looked left and right like Granny Lu entering the Grandview Garden. They didn't have the temperament of a saint at all. However, when the four of them walked together, they attracted a lot of attention. After all, the four saints were all humans. Most importantly, they were very young. Of course, it was just curiosity. It wouldn't attract too much attention. In the oasis, even Saint King level martial artists were very common, let alone saint level martial artists. They might be young and talented or have extraordinary aptitudes, but what was the use? No matter how good their aptitudes were, if they couldn't reach the Saint King level, it was just potential. In the Douling world, strength was the foundation. We're here, Thousand Love Emperor said softly. Looking in the direction of her finger, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Dozens of teleportation arrays were lined up in a long line. Every time they were used, there would be a cooldown period of 1 minute. On the other side, many powerful warriors flashed in white light and walked out of the teleportation array. The scene was quite spectacular. However, compared to the number of people leaving, the number of people entering was much smaller. Of course, everyone's eyes would inadvertently look over. After all, it was quite boring to just wait. As Thousand Love Emperor joined the line, Lin Feng and the other three began to wait patiently. There were still more than 10 people in front. It was fast, only about 10 minutes. Soon, 5 minutes later, there were 5 fewer people in front. Lin Feng looked around in boredom. His state of mind was calm, and he was gradually getting used to it. Closing his eyes, he could still feel his heart palpitating. In these 3 days, it hadn't weakened at all. It was as if he had been doing the same thing. Although he didn't know the reason, it didn't affect his body much for now. What kind of place is Yin Imperial City? Could there be a powerful human warrior behind it? Will Ziyao really live in Yin Imperial City? If she isn't, then where would she be? Lin Feng's eyes flickered as he pondered. The closer he got to Yin Imperial City, the more he missed Ziyao. They had been separated for too long. That day, she left without saying goodbye, leaving only a letter. He knew clearly that it wasn't her intention. Back then, He couldn't change the fate of being separated. But today he was different. If he found Zi Yao this time, he wouldn't let her leave again. Definitely. With this thought, Lin Feng's eyes flickered. Bits and pieces of the past appeared in his mind. There was warmth and suffering. Just as he was thinking, suddenly, pong, Lin Feng's head buzzed as his expression changed. He sensed an extremely strong aura appearing not far away. Lin Feng's train of thought was interrupted. He looked to the front and saw two figures, one in front and one behind, appear in his line of sight. The figure in front was very unfamiliar. He was dressed in luxurious clothes and had his hands behind his back. He looked like a proud son of the heavens. His long hair fluttered in the wind, and he wore silver diamond-shaped earrings. His eyes were crystal clear, as if he could see through everything in the world. Very strong. A Sage King level super expert. With this kind of aura, he was clearly a person above all others. Lin Feng's eyes turned cold. Looking at this handsome young man, he felt a sense of suffocation from the bottom of his heart. Heaven and earth. The gap between him and him was huge. Who is he? Lin Feng pursed his lips. At this moment, the handsome young man's figure had been imprinted in his mind. However, this first meeting left a deep impression. But at this moment, when his gaze fell on the figure behind the handsome young man, his expression changed greatly. He was completely stunned. It's him. It's actually him. Lin Feng never thought that he would meet him here and at this time. The divine envoy by that head of white hair, a single eye patch, and an evil aura. His left eye, which was covered by the eye patch, seemed to contain some kind of demon. His thin body carried a shocking power, as if he was the reincarnation of an Azura. It was too familiar. He would never forget what happened in the ancient southern region. That day, he was trampled on like an ant and toyed with in the palm of his hand. In the end, although he was lucky to escape, he didn't rely on his own strength. Facing him, a wave of battle intent suddenly surged. Oh! The handsome young man seemed to have noticed something and suddenly turned his head. Bai, who was behind him, also turned his head and saw Lin Feng. His white hair fluttered in the wind. Bai looked at Lin Feng with undisguised killing intent in his eyes. The handsome young man exclaimed softly and turned his head to look at Bai again. He seemed to have understood something. With a strange smile, the handsome young man changed his direction and walked towards Lin Feng. Bai followed closely behind him with a cold expression and didn't say a word. At this moment, not only Lin Feng, but Qian Lian Huang and the other two also noticed the change in the scene. Their expressions suddenly became serious. Two Saint King realm experts. Human? The handsome young man's eyes were clear and bright. He stopped in front of Lin Feng. Hello, Lin Feng said. Looking at his clear eyes, he couldn't tell what he was thinking. He didn't even know whether the handsome young man in front of him was a man or a woman. However, since it was the first time they met, he should have basic courtesy, regardless of whether he was an enemy or a friend. The handsome young man smiled faintly and stared at Lin Feng, sizing him up. His eyes seemed to see through everything about Lin Feng. The corner of his mouth raised into a faint smile, unfathomable. Jin Ji and Shi Zhixin, who were slightly weaker, even felt a chill down their spines. Bai still looked cold, but the disdain and contempt in his eyes were obvious. He hated Lin Feng and even wanted to kill him. However, he couldn't fight in the oasis. Moreover, he came out with the young master this time. No matter what he did, he had to get permission. Suddenly, Gu Sheng, the handsome young man, calmly extended his right hand with a faint smile. There seemed to be kindness in his smile, but it was hard to see through. Bai widened his eyes in disbelief. He didn't understand what the young master meant. Not only did he shake hands with a lowly human, he even told him his name. It was unbelievable. Lin Feng was slightly surprised, but he still extended his hand without hesitation. The other party's palm wasn't big. It was soft as if it had no bones. It was crystal clear and beautiful like a jade carving. It didn't look like a human's palm at all. They shook hands and let go. The two of them looked at each other. Gu Sheng, Lin Feng said silently, remembering the name. However, he didn't see that Qian Lian Huang, who was beside him, had already widened her eyes in shock. Are you also here for it? Gu Sheng smiled, but Lin Feng did not understand the meaning behind her words. Suddenly, the throbbing in his heart that had been calm suddenly became a little stronger, as if his heartbeat had become heavier. Lin Feng's expression changed slightly, and he looked at Gu Sheng. He still had that faint smile on his face, but he suddenly raised his hand and patted his chest, as if he wanted to do something. If fate wills it, I'll see you then. Gu Sheng smiled and said, I wish you good luck. As his voice fell, he closed his eyes and nodded. Then, Gu Sheng turned around and left with a relaxed smile. He looked very carefree. I took a deep look at Lin Feng, then followed Gu Sheng and left. Lin Feng's eyes kept changing. Who was this Gu Sheng? His words and actions, what exactly were they hiding? Was there any special meaning behind them? Or perhaps, what was he trying to tell him? Chapter 1293. Who was the it that Gu Sheng was talking about? Or what was it? Lin Feng's eyes sparkled as every detail of his meeting with Gu Sheng appeared in his mind. Not only did he feel more puzzled, he was even more shocked. Not to mention the strength of this handsome young man named Gu Sheng. Just Chi's every move was enough to explain everything, just like a master and servant. When they came out of the teleportation portal, they walked one after the other. Even if they left before Fengdu stepped into Gu Sheng, they didn't even walk shoulder to shoulder. This is a difference in status. Most importantly, even though Chi wanted to kill me, he did not dare to overstep his status. Nodding his head, Lin Feng's heart trembled slightly. What happened just now was too sudden. When he first met Gu Sheng, he was completely led by the nose and did not think about the meaning behind it. But now all kinds of strange things were happening. He is definitely a big shot. Lin Feng nodded. Although he did not know who Gu Sheng was, his status was much higher than the third divine envoy of the ancient god temple, Qi. What kind of shock was that? Linda? Shiji Xin called out to him. Lin Feng woke up. There was no one else in front of him. It was his turn to enter the teleportation portal. Lin Feng's eyes brightened. He shook his head and stepped aside. It was not time. He had not figured out the problem. He was not in a hurry to go to Yin Imperial City. Shiji Xin and Jin Ji were surprised. They did not ask and retreated to the side with Lin Feng. Anyway, it was not difficult to go to Yin Imperial City. Going through the teleportation portal was just a matter of queuing for a while. Their eyes were shining. Seeing Lin Feng and Qian Lian Huang's shocked expressions, they knew that the two youths were not ordinary, especially when their strength was at the level of Saint Kings. Unfathomable. Oh! Lin Feng looked at Qian Lian Huang, who was beside him. At that moment, her expression changed. She was even more shocked than he was. Lin Feng's eyes brightened. Empress Lian, you know them? Qian Lian Huang's face was solemn as her eyes glowed. She shook her head and said, How could I possibly know such a powerful person? Even the 12 Saint Lords of the human race would have to greet him respectfully. Shiji Xin and Jin Ji were shocked. However, Lin Feng wasn't surprised and asked, How did you know? Thousand Love Sovereign's eyes flashed. You can tell from his surname. Surname? Ancient? Lin Feng narrowed his eyes and pondered. If Thousand Love Empress hadn't mentioned it, she wouldn't have thought about it. Although the ancient clans had their own tribes, they all had their own godly beasts. Fusing with and absorbing the blood of divine beasts and achieving the strength of an extraordinary Empyrean deity was something that all saints of the ancient race would be proud of and change their surname. For example, the Shifeng ancient clan that he belonged to inherited the Phoenix bloodline. As long as a male reached the saint level, he would be able to change his surname to Feng, while a female would be able to change her surname to Huang. Of course, there were also those who were loyal to the clan or had their own unique characteristics. For example, his mother didn't want her surname to be Huang and maintained the clan's surname to be Jia. Another example was the third divine envoy, Qi, who didn't care about the surname of divine beasts. However, more than 90% of the ancient race's saints would take on the surname of divine beasts. Right now, the Saint King expert, Gu Sheng, had taken on the surname Gu. However, He didn't remember any divine beasts that had the surname Gu in them. I'd like to hear the details. Lin Feng looked at Thousand Love Emperor. At this moment, Jin Ji and Shi Jixin's eyes widened in curiosity. Do you know the origin of the Douling world and the origin of the 3 human tribes? Qianlian Huang looked at the 3 of them and asked softly. Jin Ji and Shi Jixin immediately shook their heads. Lin Feng's eyes flashed, and he shook his head as well. He had read a little about it in a book, but it wasn't complete. Qianlian Huang nodded and said softly, My father told me about it. It was passed down from ancient times, and it's hard to tell if it's true or not. After a pause, Qianlian Huang slowly said, Legend has it that in ancient times, the Douling world was still in chaos. However, it attracted an earth-shattering battle in the starry world. In the battle between the experts of the starry world, the human expert, Pangu, fought against 3,000 demon gods. 1 man and 1 axe were invincible. This battle was earth-shattering. It made the Douling world the main battlefield and changed the Douling world from its foundation. In the end, both sides are destroyed and both died. The blood of 3,000 demon gods flowed into the ocean and turned into the 3,000 demon tribes and countless demon tribes. Pangu's body turned into the 12 ancestral sorcerers and countless sorcerer tribes. His soul turned into the ancient race, and his blood essence turned into humans. This was the origin of the 3 human tribes. One eye-opener. Jin Ji and Shi Jixin were completely entranced. Lin Feng pondered in his heart. He could totally imagine the shocking scene. Although he didn't know if it was true or not, it wasn't important. What was important was that he understood the origin of the ancient race's name. Pangu's power was concentrated in his body and soul. His body was Pan, which formed the sorcerer tribe of today. They changed their name from Pan tribe. His soul was Gu, which formed the ancient race of today. After Pangu's power, the sorcerer tribe changed their name to the sorcerer tribe because the 12 ancestral sorcerers developed a system. However, the ancient race was extremely respectful to their ancestor, Pangu, and had always kept the name of the ancient race, especially the word Gu, which was especially revered. So this young man, Gu Sheng, Lin Feng looked at Qianlian Huang. If I'm not wrong, he should be one of the 7 ancient gods of the ancient race. Qianlian Huang's eyes sparkled as she said seriously, In the ancient race, only those who have reached the peak of the Sage King realm and are recognized by the ancient race experts can become ancient gods and be bestowed with the most glorious surname, which represents expert in status. There was a sound. Everyone took a deep breath. That young man is one of the 7 ancient gods of the ancient race. Lin Feng widened his eyes in disbelief. No wonder Ho was so respectful to him. The 7 ancient gods were transcendent existences that were only 1 step away from becoming a starry sky expert. But so young? Lin Feng frowned. Gu Sheng didn't look older than him. Could it be that he was mistaken? Phew! Lin Feng sighed softly and nodded thoughtfully. It didn't matter whether he was mistaken or not. What was important was that his name was Gu Sheng, and he was one of the 7 ancient gods of the ancient race. He was extremely powerful. Lin Feng was shocked. He closed his eyes, and the previous scenes appeared in his mind again. He was even more confused. Why would such a big shot take the initiative to greet him? He even told him his name. Judging from Ho's expression at that time, this was extremely inconceivable. Thinking back to Ho's shocked expression, it was normal. Even if a human expert reached the peak of the Sage King realm, he wouldn't take the initiative to greet a junior and tell him his name, let alone an arrogant ancient race. It was too strange. On the other side, Jin Ji and Shi Jixin pestered Thousand Love Emperor as if they were listening to a story. Their curiosity was piqued. Thousand Love Empress patiently told him everything she knew. The atmosphere was quite harmonious, and the slightly solemn feeling from before had already disappeared. As for Lin Feng, he was deep in thought. Knowing Gu Sheng's identity and not knowing it were 2 different things. Every word that such a super expert said was very important to him. Even every change in expression had a considerable meaning. If he could understand it, he would definitely gain a lot. Especially, Lin Feng's eyes were deep. After carefully pondering over what Gu Sheng had said to him, he realized that the focus was on it. Gu Sheng seemed to have come here for it, and from his point of view, he had also come here for it. But what exactly was it? Should he know? Otherwise, why would Gu Sheng say such things, as if he knew of its existence? Around, quite around, Lin Feng pursed his lips and fell in a deep thought. There should be a point that connected everything related to the existence of this unsolved mystery. What was it? Lin Feng's eyes were deep, and his mind was completely focused. Everything around him seemed to be blocked at this moment. Only the sound of his heartbeat, the feeling of breathing, and that familiar feeling of throbbing that had always been there and had never left. Ha! His heart shook. Lin Feng's expression changed, and he suddenly remembered Gu Sheng's action when he spoke. With a faint smile on his face, he suddenly raised his hand and patted his chest. It was as if he was trying to... Could it be referring to it? Lin Feng's eyes lit up completely. He had never tried to think in this direction because he subconsciously thought that only he had this feeling of throbbing. But if Gu Sheng also had this feeling, what would happen? Lin Feng's body trembled, and he clenched his fists. I understand. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. If he looked at the entire matter from this point, it seemed that all the problems would be easily solved. His right hand pressed lightly on his chest, and he felt the throbbing. Lin Feng took a deep breath, and his eyes shone brightly. He seemed to have made a decision. I want to find it, Lin Feng suddenly said. Qian Lian Huang and the other two were stunned, and they looked at Lin Feng in confusion. That Gu Sheng mentioned. Lin Feng explained softly and pointed to his chest. To be honest, ever since I entered the sorcerer realm, I've always felt my heart throbbing, as if something was calling me. And now, I finally understand. So, you're not going to Yin Imperial City? Qian Lian Huang's beautiful eyes flashed. She was very smart. Lin Feng nodded softly and said apologetically, I'm sorry, I'm being stubborn. But actually, you don't have to accompany me. We can meet at Yin Imperial City when the time comes. What are you talking about? That's right. Jin Ji and Shi Jixin shouted. Qian Lian Huang smiled. We are in the same team, and we will naturally listen to the team leader. If you want to come, we will come together. If you want to leave, we will leave together. As long as you don't find us a burden, it's fine. Of course not. Lin Feng smiled. Looking at the three sincere faces, his heart was filled with warmth. Advancing and retreating together, that is a true partner. Then let's go. Lin Feng smiled and said, All right. Chapter 1294. Oasis. A handsome young man was leisurely strolling around, looking left and right with a curious look in his eyes. Gu Sheng. Everywhere he went, he attracted a lot of attention. It wasn't because of his strength. In fact, without Lin Feng's level of observation, it was basically impossible to see how strong Gu Sheng was. For Star Lords and Star Realms, there wasn't much of a difference between the Saint level and the Saint level. What really attracted people's attention was Gu Sheng's appearance. He looked like a man and a woman, with delicate features and extremely handsome looks. His translucent white skin was like the sound of nature, soft and delicate. As he walked, his silver diamond-shaped earrings reflected light, making him look even more mysterious. Also, his aura was too strong. This was something that couldn't be described with words. Like an emperor who had been in a high position for a long time, his every move had a domineering aura that looked down on the world. Although Gu Sheng wasn't domineering, he had a high and mighty aura that made people respect him. He was a natural emperor. Young master. A white light flashed behind him, and the white-haired Ho appeared. Speak. His words were concise. Gu Sheng was holding an exquisitely crafted sword at the stall, looking at it with interest. It was inlaid with luxurious metals and gems, looking extremely luxurious. It wasn't a sword for battle, but a kind of decoration. For the aboriginals who rarely touched weapons, it was very rare. They have already left the oasis and are heading east. A cold light flashed in Ho's eyes. Is that so? Gu Sheng smiled faintly. His finger lightly brushed across the sword, making a crisp sound. Young master, why did you? Ho stopped and frowned. He couldn't understand why such a noble young master would pay so much attention to such a bastard. Gu Sheng smiled and said softly, You and that Lin Feng seem to have some grudges? Ho nodded, his eyes flashing. I want to kill him. Without hiding anything, Ho looked at Gu Sheng. If he could, he really wanted to tear Lin Feng into pieces. Gu Sheng smiled faintly and casually waved the sword in his hand, making chi-chi sounds as it pierced through the air. From time to time, he would click his tongue. Now is not the time. He still has a lot of value. Value? Ho frowned in confusion. What value did a little bastard have? With Gu Sheng's status, what did she not have? Why would she need to make use of a mere human? The more he thought about it, the more confused he became. Ha! Gu Sheng stopped his sword dance and played with it lovingly as he laughed out loud. Hey, pay up. He was slightly startled. He immediately reacted and quickly paid the money, just like a servant. The cultivator selling the sword widened his eyes as he stared at Gu Sheng in shock. He did not know who she was. To be able to make a martial saint behave like a servant. Don't forget to take the scabbard, Gu Sheng said with a smile, then left. After you paid, he casually took the scabbard and followed them, causing the surrounding people to burst into heated discussions. The two of them were like a beautiful scenery in the oasis. You know, Chi, we are like this precious sword and Lin Feng. It's this unremarkable scabbard. Let's go. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. He sensed that the aura behind him had already left. It had been following him since the oasis. The threat that entered his heart was familiar. However, compared to the powerlessness he felt back then, he now had the strength to fight. Previously, he could not sense his existence even if he was close. Now, even if the other party was following him, he could still clearly feel it. The third divine envoy, the super expert who had played him in the palm of his hand that day. There was no mistake. But now it had disappeared. It was not that he could not sense it, but the feeling was gradually weakening. It meant that you had given up on following him. Although he did not know why he came, why he did not attack him after following him, and why he suddenly left, it was obvious that it was related to Gu Sheng. What's wrong, Lin Feng? Thousand Love Emperor asked in surprise. Seeing that Lin Feng had stopped, Jin Ji and Shi Xin also stopped. Nothing. Lin Feng smiled indifferently. Let's go. He turned around and glanced at the vast oasis. His eyes flickered, and then he left without looking back. There was no need to fear his existence. He would do whatever he needed to do. If you really wanted to kill him, he would not be able to hide even if he wanted to. At most, he would have another life and death battle. Although the chances of winning were slim, he would definitely be able to slash Yu's body even if he lost. Lin Feng's departure and Gu Sheng's arrival were just the beginning. The strange phenomenon in the sky was not only seen by these few people. In fact, any martial artist who knew a little about star divination could see the changes in the starry sky at this moment. An extremely strong force, with endless rays of light, was gathering in the sky above the sorcerer territory. It was getting stronger and bigger. It was like the rising sun. The sorcerer territory became lively. Countless martial artists entered through the border. The human race, the ancient race, and various neutral forces. Sage kings, sages, and even some daring peak star sector-level martial artists came to join in the fun. The demon race had not arrived, but the sorcerer territory had become lively. The sorcerer race itself was restless. Many sorcerer race elites could not hold back and set off. Who did not want to be above others? Who did not want to obtain treasures from the heavens? Those who were fated to obtain them. Lin Feng's group of 4 moved forward casually. Unlike before, when Qian Lian Huang led the way and had a clear goal, the one leading the way now was Lin Feng. Lindigo, where are we going? Shi Xin opened her eyes wide and asked curiously. Stupid, of course we're going to look for treasures. Jin Ji glared at her. Who are you calling stupid? Shi Xin put her hands on her hips and glared at him. Who else but you? Jinji was like a dead pig that was not afraid of boiling water. He ignored Shijishin and said, "Even the 7 ancient gods of the ancient race came specially for it. It must be a heaven-defying and tyrannical treasure. If we can get it, TSK, TSK. Dream on." Shijishin snorted. "You want to fight with the ancient gods?" The two of them quarreled again and quickly deviated from the main topic. Lin Feng and Qian Lian Huang looked at each other and smiled knowingly. They were already used to the quarrel between the two of them. "Thank you," Lin Feng said softly. Qian Lian Huang smiled. "This trip is to gain experience. It's the same wherever we go. Moreover, you're the leader. Naturally, you make the decision." Lin Feng looked ahead and saw a huge plain with no end in sight. "Actually, I don't know where it is either." He sighed in his heart. Just like how he did not know where Ziyao was, he was also at a loss about that mentioned by Gu Sheng. However, clues could be found. Just like breaking a formation, if one did not try, how could one break it? There's no clue at all. Qian Lian Huang frowned and thought for a while. Then, her beautiful eyes flashed. "Didn't you say that you would feel your heart palpitate? Is there anything special about it?" "No." Lin Feng shook his head. He was very sure of this. Ever since he calmed down, the palpitations in his heart had remained the same. He was like a lazy cat, sleeping peacefully. However, it really existed. "Oh!" Qian Lian Huang fell into deep thought. There was a change. Lin Feng's eyes moved slightly as he said slowly, "When I met Gu Sheng, the palpitating feeling suddenly became stronger, but it quickly returned to normal." Looking at Qian Lian Huang, Lin Feng said seriously, "I feel that he is the same as me. We both have a connection to the same it." As soon as he said this, everyone immediately quieted down. Not only Qian Lian Huang, but Jinji and Shijishin also looked over. "This is the only clue." Lin Feng spread out his hands and said casually. The clue was insignificant. The three of them looked at each other. There was nothing they could do. "Let's continue. Let's go and see." Lin Feng smiled and said casually, "If it's ours, we'll get it. If it's not ours, it's useless to force it." Such a heavenly treasure still depended on fate. Time passed day by day. The sorcerer tribe's territory became more and more lively. Lin Feng and the other three were also very happy. Every day was spent in intense and exciting training. Although they were searching everywhere, there were treasures everywhere in the sorcerer tribe's territory. Moreover, there were many strange beasts with spirits, and even divine beasts and ferocious beasts. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth was extremely dense. Basically, if the 4-person team's training was to explore the terrain, Lin Feng would take the lead when they entered dangerous places. Qian Lian Huang would cover the back, and Shijishin and Jinji would be in the middle. If they encountered a battle, Shijishin and Jinji would go first. If they couldn't win, Lin Feng and Qian Lian Huang would take over. The division of labor was very clear. Lin Feng was also consciously training Shijishin and Jinji. The two of them were too inexperienced and had little experience. I believe that after a while, they will be able to win against a sage sorcerer of the same level. Qian Lian Huang's beautiful eyes flickered as she looked ahead. At that moment, Shijishin and Jinji were fighting a huge dark light tiger together. A ferocious beast. It was an existence on par with divine beasts. Where there was light, there was darkness. If divine beasts were described as light, then ferocious beasts were described as darkness. In terms of talent, divine beasts were better than ferocious beasts. However, in terms of combat power, divine beasts were actually slightly inferior to ferocious beasts. Ferocious beasts were naturally violent and unusually ruthless. They were bloodthirsty and would even kill their own kind. Therefore, the number of ferocious beasts was actually less than divine beasts. An upper-level sage dark light tiger. It was of the same level as Shijishin and Jinji. However, the strength of divine beasts and ferocious beasts could not be calculated separately. An upper-level sage ferocious beast strength was comparable to a peak sage sorcerer. In fact, it was even more powerful. However, right now, Shi Jixin and Jin Ji were able to fight it on par. It was obvious. After entering the sorcerer tribe's territory, they have improved a lot. Qian Lian Huang smiled, obviously very satisfied. In fact, to a certain extent, the improvement of their strength was due to her training. Is that so? She asked casually, but did not get a response from Lin Feng. Qian Lian Huang snorted softly and turned to look at Lin Feng. She saw that his eyes flickered, and he seemed to be thinking about something while looking ahead. She immediately asked curiously, "What's wrong, Lin Feng?" Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and he said slowly, "Do you feel that something is wrong?" 2 more chapters, updated at 0:00. Chapter 1295. Inappropriate? Thousand Love Empress was slightly startled, her beautiful eyes sparkling. "You mean the appearance of these beasts?" Thousand Love Emperor asked. "Yes." Lin Feng frowned. "Divine beasts, ferocious beasts, and a large number of exotic beasts. Something is wrong." After a pause, Lin Feng pursed his lips. With the temperament of ferocious beasts, they would kill anyone they see, especially divine beasts. Why would they appear at the same time as the divine beasts? Inappropriate. Not only here. In fact, since a few days ago, he had felt that there were some changes in the sorcerer tribe realm. It was a very subtle change, but he could not pinpoint it. Now that the ferocious beasts had appeared, it proved that he was not overthinking, but there was indeed such a thing. There must be a reason for this abnormality. The abnormality in the sorcerer tribe realm was most likely related to it. One coincidence could be a coincidence, but 2 or 3 coincidences appearing together was no longer a coincidence, but an established fact. There was a root to be found, and there was an invisible thread connecting them. Even if he could not see it, it did not mean that it did not exist. Thousand Love Emperor also pondered. With her sharp senses, she also felt that something was wrong, but it was not as clear as Lin Feng. "You mean?" Thousand Love Emperor looked at Lin Feng, her beautiful eyes moving slightly. Divine beasts, ferocious beasts, and even weaker exotic beasts are born from the gathering of heaven and earth spirit chi. They are born with the ability to sense heaven and earth, and are compatible with it. Lin Feng said slowly, "Their senses are the most direct and accurate. Because of its appearance, it gathered a strong amount of heaven and earth spirit chi, which caused the change." So, Thousand Love Emperor's beautiful eyes flickered. At this moment, they are all heading towards it? I don't know. Lin Feng shook his head. Maybe he's trying to avoid it. Thousand Love Emperor nodded. Indeed, this possibility existed. If it is as you guessed, isn't a choice now? Thousand Love Emperor smiled. Lin Feng said softly, "If we can reach that area first, the chances of finding it will be much higher than others. The difference of 1 step is like the distance between heaven and earth. The early bird gets the worm, but if it's late, there might not even be anything left. Let's not waste any more time." Lin Feng made his move. The ferocious beast, the dark light tiger, became more and more courageous as it fought. It gained the upper hand from a balanced situation and suppressed Jin Ji and Shi Jixin. Lin Feng's hand was blazing with flames. He didn't care about the beast's strength at all. He used the most ferocious method to kill the dark light tiger. Fast, ruthless, accurate. The dark light tiger, which had been swaggering around, was burned to ashes in the blink of an eye. It lacked astral treasures or astral weapons, and its speed was not as fast as Lin Feng's. In the case of defeat, the Dark Glory Tiger had no chance of escaping. All that was left was the vicious beast blood essence floating in the air. Its physical body had already turned to ashes. Shi Jixin and Jin Ji looked at Lin Feng in deep shock. In front of Lin Feng, the dark light tigers that had beaten them to a pulp were like little kittens that couldn't even withstand a single blow. He didn't even see it retaliate before it was killed. Too fast. They weren't on the same level at all. Lindigo, Brother Lin, Shi Jixin, and Jin Ji gathered together, a little nervous. This time, Lin Feng didn't come to their aid when they were about to be defeated. His help so early made the two nervous and unable to react. It's fine. Lin Feng smiled slightly, dispelling the nervousness in their hearts and letting out a sigh of relief. It's like this. Immediately, Lin Feng repeated what he had said to Thousand Love Emperor. Shi Jixin and Jin Ji nodded, suddenly enlightened. What do you think? Lin Feng looked at the two and asked softly. Shi Jixin murmured softly and smiled. I feel that these divine beasts and ferocious beasts are the same as us. They also want to become stronger. Lin Feng and Thousand Love Emperor nodded. It made sense. Saint-level divine beasts and ferocious beasts already had complete consciousness and thoughts. They naturally knew how to differentiate and pursue power. I don't think so, Jin Ji said solemnly. Every time there's a great change in the world, a heaven-defying existence will descend, causing natural disasters, earthquakes, and even lightning tribulations. Maybe these divine beasts and ferocious beasts are fleeing to avoid disaster. That's true. His words were crude, but reasonable. It was normal for humans to seek fortune and avoid calamities. It was the same for divine beasts and ferocious beasts. Lin Feng nodded thoughtfully. Pooling the ideas of the masses was indeed better than judging by one person. Why do you always disagree with me? Shi Jixin said angrily, looking at Jin Ji angrily. I'm just stating facts. Jin Ji pursed his lips. Do you want me to flatter you and go along with you? I'm not interested in doing this kind of thing, Mississippi. Shi Jixin's face was red with anger. In an instant, the two started arguing again. Lin Feng and Thousand Love Emperor smiled helplessly, but let them be. Their opinions were quite precious. What do you think? Lin Feng looked at Thousand Love Emperor. I think. Thousand Love Emperor pursed her lips. Maybe we could try to split into two teams. 2 people in a team. Then one team will be able to find the right place. That's not very good, right? Lin Feng frowned slightly. Since I can sense it with my heart, the chances of finding it will be higher. If I can't sense it with my heart, even if I find the right place, the chances of finding it will be very small. The most important thing is compared to other forces, our strength is too weak. Their strength was already weak. If they split up, wouldn't they be even weaker? Linda Gu, don't you have a clone? Shi Jixin suddenly interrupted and said angrily, I don't want to be with this guy. I want to go over there. Who wants to be with you? I'll go over there. Jin Ji was also childish. The two of them refused to give in to each other. The speaker didn't mean it, but the listener took it seriously. That's right. Why didn't I think of that? Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He had a clone. Although his clone didn't have that kind of heart-palpitating feeling, his main body and clone could summon each other at any time. The answer to this choice was actually not that difficult for him. He could completely summarize it. However, Jixin's suggestion is not bad. Qianlian Huang's beautiful eyes flickered. Let's split up. If we find the right place, we'll build a teleportation formation. Teleportation formation. Lin Feng looked at Qianlian Huang. He was hesitating about this just now. He didn't care about it. However, if Qianlian Huang and the other two were to split up, there would definitely be one who chose the wrong path and had no fate with it. However, if there was a teleportation formation, the situation would be completely different. However, who would bring a teleportation formation with them? Moreover, unless it was an inscription master, no one would install one even if they brought one. Looking at Lin Feng's puzzled expression, Qianlian Huang couldn't help but chuckle. She pointed at Jin Ji and said, Lin Feng, don't tell me you don't know Jin Ji. Jin Ji. Lin Feng looked over. At this moment, Jin Ji was smiling and raising his head. Brother Jin, you have a teleportation formation? Lin Feng asked in realization. Of course. Jin Ji chuckled. I have as many as you want. Lin Feng let out a soft, oh, and looked at Qianlian Huang in surprise. The latter smiled and said, You don't know? Jin Ji's father, Jin Wan, is one of the top inscription masters in the entire southern region. Although Jin Ji's main cultivation path is the martial arts path, it's more than enough to install an ordinary teleportation formation. Leave it to me. Jin Ji patted his chest. and said confidently, "TSK, you're so arrogant." Shi Jixin pouted and muttered, "Can't I? I'm better than you." Jin Ji was unforgiving towards Shi Jixin. The latter was so angry that her face turned red. Lin Feng smiled. The quarrel between the two was actually the budding of a relationship. Jin Ji wasn't a talkative person. He only revealed such a character in front of Shi Jixin. It was enough to see how important Shi Jixin was in his heart. Perhaps even he didn't know that he had unknowingly fallen in love with Shi Jixin. Bystanders could see things clearly. However, the two people in the game did not know. However, there was no need for bystanders to participate in such matters. They could develop on their own. All right, it's decided then. Lin Feng smiled faintly. They split into two groups. His main body, Qian Lian Huang, and Shi Jixin followed the direction of the divine beasts and ferocious beasts. His doppelganger and Jin Ji went in the opposite direction. They each took a path. It was the best of both worlds. Although they lacked soldiers and generals, the four-man team split up. However, their journey was faster and more concise. There was no need to train anymore. What they needed now was efficiency. Lin Feng's main body and doppelganger led the way without wasting any time. Tisk, tisk, flames flew. His main body carried Qian Lian Huang and Shi Jixin, so the pressure was reduced. They were gradually moving away from the center of the wizard territory. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth was weaker, so the threat was naturally smaller. The reason why he let his main body choose this place was not based on judgment, but on intuition. This was because the first time he felt his heart palpitate the strongest was when he had just entered the wizard territory. On the other side, Jin Ji's mouth was slightly open. He was stunned, as if he was suffocating. TSK, TSK, TSK. In front, Lin Feng's illusions were everywhere. One man and one spear, like a demon god descending to the world. Jin Ji, who was also a heavenly martial artist, could feel how terrifying Lin Feng was. He was much stronger than before. Monster, Jin Ji muttered. He was extremely shocked. Previously, he was still a little worried about going deeper into the wizard territory. After all, the deeper they went, the greater the threat. In addition, if his judgment was correct, the descent of the heavenly treasure would trigger a catastrophe. If they entered, they would definitely be implicated. However, he didn't want to lose to Shi Jixin, or rather, he didn't want to lose face in front of Shi Jixin. What kind of strength is this? Jin Ji was completely stunned. Lin Feng's main body was already strong enough. Who would have thought that his doppelganger was even more terrifying? It was unbelievable. The last time he fought side by side with Lin Feng was in the Sparrow King prison. When they faced the law enforcers of the ancient Divine Hall, Lin Feng had almost died. That battle was still fresh in his memory. But now, Lin Feng's strength was 1,000 times stronger than that time. Too powerful. Jin Ji's eyes lit up as he looked at the battle in front of him carefully. This was like a textbook to him. Chapter 1296. Which path was the right one? No one dared to say with certainty, but this did not stop the strong warriors from entering. The Sorcerer Tribe realm was getting more and more lively. As time passed, the strange phenomenon in the sky became clearer. 3 dots and a line gathered together to form an extremely bright light, as if it had absorbed enough nutrients, illuminating the sky. It was the purest light source, the purest star energy. Looking at it from afar, one could feel the power of the heavens. It continued to grow. In the Sorcerer Tribe realm, as long as one looked up, they could see it clearly. Like a butterfly breaking out of its cocoon, it was only waiting for the right time. The days passed one by one. The time spent waiting and searching felt very rushed. Like a white steed flashing by, it disappeared in an instant. The number of people is increasing. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Yes, it's getting more and more lively. Qian Lian Huang smiled. I said it must be here, but you didn't believe me. Shi Jixin pouted. Although she said that, there was a hint of worry in her eyes. As the ball of light grew, the phenomenon became clearer, and one could feel that the power was quite strong. Everyone followed the ball of light and headed to the place closest to the ball of light, where they could see the ball of light clearly. Those with strong senses would head to the direction where the ball of light was the most intense. At this moment, the whereabouts of the divine beasts and ferocious beasts were not that important. In fact, be it divine beasts, ferocious beasts, or even strange beasts, they had already run away. At that time, Lin Feng was just a coincidence. However, most of the time, fate began from a coincidence. No one could predict how the real it would descend and where it would land, including the mysterious strong warrior of the ancient tribe, Gu Sheng, the powerful sorcerer emperor, and the countless mysterious strong warriors who had entered the sorcerer tribe realm. None of them knew. Thump, thump, thump. Lin Feng's heart was beating very fast, and his eyes were shining. Looking up at the sky, even though it was broad daylight, he could still see the ball of light clearly, as if it was calling out to him. It was a very clear feeling, a very touching feeling. It was close at hand. It should be here. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. At this moment, he was 80 to 90% sure that his main body was the correct choice no matter how he looked at it. Along the way, he had seen many experts. Compared to the empty space around his doppelganger, there were countless experts from various forces gathered here. They were all rushing towards this area. It was densely packed. Each of them occupied a piece of land, but for the time being, they were at peace and did not interfere with each other. However, what was certain was that with the arrival of the heavenly treasure, an unprecedented chaotic battle would begin here. For the sake of seizing the heaven treasure, no one would give up easily. Since they had come here, it was impossible for them to shrink back. "They've all gone mad," Shi muttered. "That's for sure. It's a sight that's hard to come by in a million years." Thousand Love Emperor's beautiful eyes flickered. As far as I know, no matter if it was the first or second war of the shamans, nothing like this happened. This time, the descent of the heavenly treasure will be unprecedented in history. Lin Feng nodded. He was also very clear in his heart. Looking at all the areas here, there would always be figures. Even if it was sparse, there would still be one or two. Greed was a sin, but it was also an excellent way to become stronger. He was no exception. The chances are very slim. But if I can obtain this treasure, my strength will change greatly, and I will be able to compete with Sage King experts. At that time, the southern region will no longer be in a passive state. Lin Feng's eyes flickered. No matter how small the chances were, he still wanted to try. On the other side, the doppelganger had already brought Jinji deep into the hinterland. After more than 10 days of rushing, they had truly entered the central area of the shaman territory. Although there was still a long distance to the core area, they could no longer go forward. No matter how strong the doppelganger was, it was still at the peak of the saint level. There was still a layer of membrane that had not been broken through to the Sage King level. Jinji closed his eyes, his expression solemn. He was not cultivating, nor was he meditating. Frowning, Jinji was recalling Lin Feng's battle just now and was greatly inspired. A battle with a low-level Sage King, the Emperor River Shaman tribe. Among the 12 shaman tribes, the Emperor River Shaman tribe, which was ranked in the top 3 in terms of strength, was abnormally powerful at the same level. It could be said that they could easily win against a mid-level human Sage King and were almost comparable to a high-level human Sage King. Their speed was especially terrifying to the extreme. However, Lin Feng could fight one-on-one with them and not be at a disadvantage. In the end, he even won by a small margin and seriously injured the low-level Sage King of the Emperor River Shaman tribe. This was a true battle between Sage Kings, and it was a close-range battle. Jinji's gains were great. The Scorpio constellation's star seal on his forehead shone. Jinji's hands changed from time to time, carefully recalling this battle and putting himself in it. Whether it was the Emperor River Shaman tribe or Lin Feng, cold sweat dripped from his forehead, and he felt a deep pressure. This was too heavy a burden for him. However, the more it was like this, the more potential it could force out, and he could comprehend more. Jinji was never a person who would retreat from a difficult situation. Like Lin Feng, he also had the heart of a true martial artist. Huff. Gently exhaling, Lin Feng opened his eyes. That was really close, I almost lost. Lin Feng stood up and clenched his fists, feeling refreshed. The battle with the low-level Sage King of the Emperor River Shaman tribe was very enjoyable and satisfying. It could be said that ever since his avatar's 7 spirits merged into one, he had never been so serious and fought a real battle. It's a pity that I couldn't comprehend rising clouds in the end. Lin Feng muttered softly. His only regret, the battle with the Emperor River Shaman tribe, was more of a contest of physical strength. The requirements for spear techniques were not high, and he had always had the advantage, so he could not find the feeling of spear techniques. Swoosh! Starlight shone faintly. Lin Feng nodded in satisfaction. His star source energy had already recovered. Although his body was slightly injured, for this immortal body of his, it was just a matter of adjusting his breathing in an instant, and he had already recovered. Looking ahead, a pitch-black forest area gave him a terrifying feeling, but he could not go any deeper. If I encounter a mid-level Sage King of the Emperor River Shaman tribe, I will lose. I'm afraid it will be me. Lin Feng thought to himself. It was not that he was timid, but that there was no need. Moreover, his avatar did not have any telepathy, so he could not determine where the real location was. He only knew that there were no signs of divine beasts, ferocious beasts, strange beasts, and so on. There were no signs of any living beasts within 100 miles. Logically speaking, this should be the correct area. However, there were no obvious signs. Other than the occasional shaman tribe, there were no other races or forces. Most importantly, his main body's telepathy was intense. When he looked up, he could see the ball of light. It was as if it was very close, and he could sense it very deeply. No matter how he looked at it, that was the place where the real treasure had descended, and it had attracted countless experts. So, are you going over? Lin Feng looked at Jinji. I'm not interested. Jinji shrugged and said casually, I think it's better to cultivate here. Lin Feng laughed. You're afraid of being teased by Shiji Xin, aren't you? How could that be? Jinji hurriedly denied, but his face turned red, as if he had been hit on the mark. Lin Feng saw his expression and smiled. He knew his character, but he did not expose him. Actually, it's not bad here. Anyway, it's crowded there. I'm afraid you can't fight for it, even if you want to. Actually, he also wanted to continue fighting here. His avatar's strength had reached a bottleneck. It would not be easy to break through. Using battle to stimulate his potential was not a bad idea. That's what I was thinking. Jinji's eyes lit up. Shaman tribe, ancestral Magus Palace. This was where the highest authority of Shaman tribe was, and only the strongest 12 Shaman kings were qualified to enter. The giant stone statues of the 12 ancestral Magus stood tall and lifelike. They circled around the ancestral Magi Palace, forming a huge circle. Their ferocious faces and terrifying auras seemed to be able to swallow everything. The existence of these stone statues filled the entire ancestral Magi Palace with majesty, as if it had come alive. The ancestral Magus Palace did not have a roof. It was built in the open air to allow the 12 ancestral Magus to stand upright and not be restrained. At this moment, the Shaman King, Dijiang, was looking at the starry sky with his hands behind his back. He was looking at the giant shining light ball with burning eyes. Brother, are we really not going there? The voice was loud and clear. The one who spoke was a ferocious monster with bone spikes all over his body, Xinming. He looked ugly, but he was not scheming. He looked at Dijiang's back and asked naively, Yes, brother. The Candle Dragon and the Shi Baishur have already gone there. He had 7 hands behind his back and 2 in front of his chest. He was Hutu, the one with the strongest defense among the 12 shaman tribes. Hutu had a serious face and a calm personality. Compared to Xinming, Hutu was more calm and intelligent. They were Dijiang's direct subordinates, and they were extremely loyal. Is there a need for that? The voice was very calm, revealing an extremely strong confidence. Shaman King, Dijiang. He was a hero who had experienced the Second Great Shaman War and turned the tide. Each and every one of his actions was shocking. I'm afraid that the Candle Dragon and the Shi Bai Shi will get the treasure. I'm afraid that. Huda frowned and looked worried. Yes, brother. If you don't go there, you won't get the treasure. If you go there, you might get it, Xianming said naively. Said Xianming. Dijiang grinned. He turned around and looked at the two of them. His eyes twinkled. Do you know where the treasure is? Isn't it over there? Hutu was stunned. Yes. Xianming opened his eyes wide. Dijiang laughed and turned around slowly with his hands behind his back. He looked at the starry sky and said, This kind of treasure has its own consciousness. It might not be what you want. God has blessed the shaman tribe to appear in the shaman tribe territory. It will belong to the shaman tribe. However, if it's not meant to be with me, what's the point of forcing it? His voice was loud and clear. Dijiang's eyes were bright. He stretched out his right hand and said, If it's meant to be with me, it will come to me. Pang Rant's body was full of arrogance and confidence. He was the Shaman King. The man who stood at the peak of the Douling world, Dijiang. Brothers, give Xiao Xiao some monthly votes. Although you won't fight for it, don't rank too low. Sigh. Thank you. Chapter 1297. There were more and more people. They gathered at the edge of the Sorcerer Tribe's territory, right below the strange phenomenon. The experts from the Sorcerer Tribe, the Ancient Tribe, and countless experts from the neutral tribes had all gathered together. This included some black-clothed, masked, and unknown experts hiding in the darkness in the corners. They were all hesitating and preparing for the upcoming battle. There were too many experts hiding their auras in this area. Saint-level experts were nothing. Only Saint King-level existences would truly dare to covet such a heavenly treasure. There are more and more people. Shi Jixin frowned slightly. This is only the edge of the Sorcerer Tribe's territory, so it's easy to enter. Thousand Love Emperor said softly. The ball of light is already very big. The heavenly treasure might appear at any time. Lin Feng's eyes were bright as he looked up at the sky. At this moment, he could see the huge ball of light clearly, as if it was engraved in his heart. Looking at it made his heart palpitate. In fact, with each passing day, the feeling became deeper. And now, with each passing hour, the feeling in his heart became deeper. It was as if it was calling out to him. Lindigo, do you know where it will appear? Shi Jixin lowered her voice and whispered. Thousand Love Emperor's beautiful eyes brightened. The two girls knew that although there were many experts fighting for the heavenly treasure, not many would be able to sense it like Lin Feng. Therefore, although the three of them were weaker, they still had a chance. Lin Feng smiled and shook his head. At this moment, boom, boom, a violent explosion sounded. In this calm space, it was as if thunder had struck the ground. However, no matter if it was Lin Feng or the two girls, they did not panic at all. Such a situation had happened more than once in the past few days, and it was becoming more frequent. As the strange phenomenon became clearer, the experts became more anxious and uneasy. It was not only because of their bad tempers, but also because of the fight for territory. Although no one knew where the heavenly treasure would descend, everyone had a feeling. Perhaps it might not be correct, but they all believed that their feelings were correct. Seizing advantageous territories had already become a custom in this place. Some people would give in, but some wouldn't. How many times has it been today? Lin Feng smiled casually. Dozens of times, right? Thousand Love Emperor's beautiful eyes flickered, her expression clear. I really don't understand them. What's there to fight about now? Shi Jixin curled her lips. Lin Feng smiled. The area here was indeed very large, but the true core area could still be vaguely sensed. He could sense it, but so could some Saint King-level experts. In the distance, they could faintly see some Saint King-level auras. In a place that their eyes could not reach, They had established a territory that belonged to them. It was a warning to other saints who were spying on them. But there was nothing he could do. The aura of a pinnacle saint was not enough to serve as a warning. Even if his strength was equivalent to that of Saint King, just talking was useless. "Let's hope we're lucky," Lin Feng muttered. On the other side, it was a stark contrast to the bustling scene over there. Other than Lin Feng and Jinji, they would occasionally see one or two powerful warriors from the sorcerer tribe. All the divine beasts and strange beasts had run away. Even the wood spirits seemed to have migrated out of the land. This place was like a dangerous place, empty and empty. It was as if a disaster was about to happen. "Brother Lin, why don't we retreat too?" Jinji hesitated. It was quiet and unbearable. It made one's hair stand on end. It was like a dark hell. "Are you afraid?" Lin Feng opened his eyes and smiled calmly. "I'm afraid I've implicated you." Jinji shook his head seriously. There was no fear in his eyes. It was his idea to come here. As a man, he was naturally fearless. However, he did not want to implicate Lin Feng like the first time. "What are you talking about? We're a team." Lin Feng smiled and looked up at the sky. Although this place was very far from the ball of light, and compared to the hot place, it was like an unpopular place. Moreover, it was filled with ominous signs. However, somehow, he felt a sense of calmness. Perhaps it was the silence of this place that gave him this feeling. Or perhaps it was the realization of his clone. No matter what, it was not necessarily a bad thing. Whether it was an auspicious sign or an ominous sign, it was just a sign and not a fact. There must be a reason for this abnormality. He wanted to take a gamble. There was nothing to be afraid of if he lost. However, if he won, he would win this round cleanly and make a lot of money. The entire area was in front of him now. No one would fight with him. Fight. This word ran through the entire hot place at this moment. As the energy of the ball of light became more and more intense, the number of people increased. The fight also became more and more intense. It was not only the martial saints. Even the Saint Kings were fighting. The entire hot place was in chaos. The two girls looked into the distance with serious expressions. Another day had passed. The fight was getting more and more intense. Under such circumstances, could they be spared? The answer was no. "Oh!" Lin Feng was moved. He turned around slightly. In the distance, two Pang-Ran figures with strong auras appeared. This aura was clearly that of the wizard race. Both of them had the face of a human and the body of a beast. Their ears were like that of a dog. They were from the Shi by Lich tribe. Their huge bodies were at least 100 meters tall. They were Saint Kings. Swish! Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He frowned slightly. As expected, he could not avoid it. With the arrival of the strongest wizard race in this area, the situation of fighting for the rare treasure had become two extremes. After all, the wizard race was the strongest race. Whether it was in terms of numbers or strength, they had the absolute advantage. Whoosh! Whoosh! The two figures floated in the air and looked down at Lin Feng and the other two. "I'll give you 5 seconds to scram as far away as you can. Otherwise, die." The slightly stronger Shebi necromancer said in a deep voice, his eyes full of disdain and indifference. It was a familiar human language. There are no superfluous words, only threats. One was a mid-order Saint King, while the other was an early-order Saint King. So the Shibai Corps, which clan was confident they could defeat these two. Only with strength could one be domineering. "Oh!" Lin Feng's eyes lit up and his heart trembled slightly. With Yang Kai's strength, if he were to fight a Saint King early stage Shibai Corps shaman one-on-one, he would definitely win. However, against a mid-order Saint King Shibai Corps shaman, Yang Kai's chances of victory were slim. Unless he sent an avatar here, with just his strength alone, even with the help of the two women, they were no match for him. However, retreating without a fight was not what he wanted. It was a bit too cowardly. 3, 2, 1. An ominous glint appeared in the eyes of the leader of the Shebi Corps wizards. He had already lost his patience and was about to attack. Words spoken were like water spilled. He was a Saint King shaman, so how could he lie? At this time, Qian Lianhuang and Shi Jixin were already standing behind Lin Feng. Since they were a team, they would naturally face it together. How could they retreat? Leave one to me. Qian Lianhuang's eyes lit up. Her voice fell directly into his ears. Lin Feng was quite surprised as he felt the aura of Qian Lianhuang's soul increase in an instant. Along the way, he had not seen her true strength. He thought she might not have improved much, but now it seemed the opposite. Qian Lianhuang's voice fell. If she did not have enough confidence, how could she be so sure? She was actually able to fight against a sorcerer tribe cultivator who was at the beginner level of the Sage King realm. Lin Feng's reaction was indeed a pleasant surprise. After all, Qian Lianhuang was a true top genius of the human race. She was a Saint King shaman who had broken through 70% of the Saint realm. Her strength and potential were not bad. However, at this moment, she did not need to fight. In fact, he did not need to fight at all, because he was here. Hua! Pang Rant's aura descended, and the two Shi by shaman tribe members' expressions changed drastically. At this moment, the Saint King shaman tribe members' hearts all trembled. Many of the Saint King shaman tribe members' faces turned pale as they looked at the sky in disbelief. One after the other, two light figures arrived like the wind. They were not fast, but they were like emperors descending, making people look up to them. Gu Sheng and Servant Qi, you're here. Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he went up to welcome them. Just a moment ago, his heart beat violently, and he could feel it very deeply. He knew that Qi was here. Just like the first time they met, he and Gu Sheng were like two magnetic poles colliding. His appearance made the throbbing feeling even more profound. He did not know why, but it was the truth. It was also clear and distinguishable. Yes, it's my first time in the shaman tribe's territory, so I walked around for a while. Gu Sheng smiled. There was no murderous intent in his smile. However, at this moment, the two Shi by shaman tribe members' faces turned pale. They could feel the terrifying strength of this mysterious young man. It was hard to estimate. He was even comparable to their shaman king. Brother Gu, you're in a good mood. Lin Feng smiled. Although he did not know what Gu Sheng was up to, he should be polite since Gu Sheng was smiling at him. With a smile, Gu Sheng's eyes lit up. He raised his head and looked at the sky. That was close. I almost missed it. With a calm expression, Gu Sheng suddenly turned his head and looked at the two Shi by shaman tribe members. His eyes were filled with curiosity. His expression turned ugly. The two Shi by shaman tribe members did not dare to be rash. They did not dare to make a sound and quickly retreated. The world of experts was simple. The small fish ate the shrimps, and the big fish ate the small fish. Lin Feng smiled. He had saved himself a lot of trouble. I didn't expect that old man didn't come. Gu Sheng looked around. His eyes flashed as he muttered to himself. Old man? Lin Feng was slightly stunned. Before he came back to his senses, Gu Sheng's gaze landed on him. With a faint smile, he said, Later, everyone will do their best. I wish you luck, Brother Lin. After saying that, Gu Sheng smiled and left. His valiant figure made Lin Feng jump crazily. What was that feeling? Thump, thump, thump. His heartbeat was extremely intense. The throbbing feeling in his heart had never been so intense. Lin Feng's expression changed drastically. He raised his head. At this moment, the huge ball of light was shining brightly. It was changing. It's here. It was finally going to be born. Chapter 1298. It had changed. Finally, it had changed. At this moment, all the experts in the hot land were looking up at the sky with their eyes wide open, holding their breaths. Even the experts who were fighting over territory all stopped. They had been waiting for a long time, waiting for this moment before their eyes. The heavenly treasure was finally going to appear. Lin Feng's eyes were bright. His chest rose and fell rapidly. His heart had never palpitated so strongly before. It was a strong call. In his mind, it seemed that the sky was falling and the earth was cracking. He felt an inexplicable, domineering aura, and a roaring sound was ringing in his ears. A godlike existence, a giant that was countless times bigger than the wizard tribe, stood between the sky and the earth. In the face of the countless enemies rushing over, a terrifying power erupted in an instant. The existence of the giant was indomitable, like a pillar that supported the heavens, and nothing could shake it. Boom, boom, boom. In his mind, a majestic power was ringing. A more vivid scene than the battle between the wizard tribe and the demon tribe suddenly appeared. It was vague and blurry, and he didn't even know what was going on. However, he felt a pain in his heart, and his body trembled inexplicably. Lin Feng wasn't the only one who had such a change. Gu Sheng was the same. With his hands behind his back, he stood in the air. Behind him, Qi was guarding him with a serious expression. His eyes were slightly confused. Gu Sheng's aura was chaotic. However, the proud figure didn't change at all. He just floated quietly. No one knew what Gu Sheng was doing. Pang Rant's aura kept spreading out, making the surrounding time and space change strangely. Gu Sheng's power could already affect the world. Extremely powerful. Wizard tribe, ancestral magi palace. It's finally here. Wearing a golden robe, Dijiang looked up at the starry sky with bright eyes. His body didn't change at all. There seemed to be an invisible barrier around his body, blocking everything. Xianming and Hutu stood behind him respectfully. However, at this moment, as the starry sky in the distance shone, 3 light spots emitted bright light. The energy gathered like an explosion. The 3 light spots that represented the wizard tribe in the starry sky became bigger and bigger. The energy became more and more terrifying and huge. He couldn't control himself. Swish, swish. On the Ancestor Magi Palace, the statues of the 12 Ancestor Magi suddenly emitted a strange light, which made Xianming and Hutu change their expressions in surprise. However, Dijiang's expression was indifferent, as if everything was within his expectations. I didn't expect to wait so long, Dijiang murmured softly. We have inherited Pangu's legacy. By right, we should be stronger than the monster race. But now that we are divided into 3, our strength is greatly reduced. Our ancestor was obstinate and self-opinionated. How could he have thought that the key point was actually the lowly human race? With a long sigh, Dijiang seemed to be reminiscing about something. After a long century and the second war of the liches and demons, Dijiang's face did not show any signs of aging. Instead, his eyes were filled with dominance and became brighter and brighter. He deserved to be the true emperor of the Douling world. There can be no construction without destruction. The ancient race is like that. The human race is also like that. 12 strands of king's qi, suppressing the emperor's qi. How will the human race unleash their power? How will they bring about an opportunity in this war of the shamans and demons? Demon race. Light flashed in Dijiang's eyes, and he suddenly burst into laughter. His laughter was full of arrogance, which reverberated between heaven and earth as if he was standing on top of the world and looking down on everything. Your doomsday has arrived. Let me, Dijiang, send you on your way. Use your blood to commemorate the rise of the wizard race. Return to heaven's will. Pang Ran shouted, and Dijiang's aura swallowed the mountains and rivers. At this moment, Pang Rant's emperor aura burst out completely. Hutu and Xianming opened their eyes wide, looking at Dijiang. He was so close, but so unreachable. The statues of the 12 ancestor magi bloomed with colors. All the light gathered and shot toward the sky. In the starry sky, 3 stars connected into a line. Under the shining light in the lead, it was shocking. It completely lit up the starry sky. Explode the light ball. Clang. It was like thunder and lightning flashed. An anomaly descended from the sky, shattering the entire starry sky. At the place where the light ball gathered, it was like a butterfly breaking out of its cocoon. Extremely white light pierced out like the sun, and the energy poured out like shooting stars. It was like a meteor shower. Everyone's eyes lit up, and they almost stopped breathing. The countless shooting stars had different strengths and weaknesses. The color seemed white, but it was under the cover of the shining white light ball. When the shooting stars spread out and were far away from the white light, one would realize that it was not white, but colorful like a rainbow. Treasure, earth-grade treasure, or even heaven-grade treasure. That familiar feeling of energy could not fool anyone. The senses of a saint and saint king were very strong. So much heaven energy burst out, but it was just the beginning. It was like a warm-up before the battle. However, at this moment, many powerful beings could not hold back anymore. They spread out, especially those weaker cosmic realm and saint kings. They had already made their choice. Give up the big for the small. Perhaps a true unique treasure of heaven would descend at that time. However, it was too difficult for them to obtain it with their strength. They might as well choose the best and choose something within their ability. Looking around, there were more than 100 shooting stars scattered in different places. It was a race against time. If they were fast enough, they would definitely be one step ahead of others. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. For a moment, there were sounds of air being torn apart. The hot land was turbulent, and the aura was chaotic. The number of powerful beings was constantly decreasing. Jixin Lian Huang, quick! Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and he suddenly shouted. This kind of opportunity could only be encountered and not sought. Although the two girls were with him, their chances of obtaining a unique treasure of heaven were actually very small. However, the distribution of these unique treasures was completely different. Those who were truly fated would obtain them. There were more than 100 shooting stars, and there was quite a lot of heaven-grade energy. Earth-grade ones were mostly white, black, and gold. To the two girls, this was undoubtedly a great opportunity. Moreover, because of the large number of unique treasures of heaven, the competition became much smaller, and the pressure was reduced. Most importantly, because the people fighting for the treasures were scattered, the danger was reduced by a lot. Sister Qian, let's take one side each. Shi Jixin's beautiful eyes lit up, and she did not hesitate. Compared to when she had just entered the sorcerer tribe's territory, Shi Jixin had now been trained. She truly dared to make decisions and take charge. The situation was changing rapidly, but Shi Jixin's expression did not show any signs of panic. It was as if one was influenced by one's environment. Her personality was becoming more and more similar to Lin Feng and Qian Lianhuang. Okay, be careful. We'll contact each other when the time comes. Qian Lianhuang pointed at the compass and did not say much. There were many things that did not need to be said. In an instant, the two girls rushed to the left and right. Shi Jixin rushed to the outer area of the sorcerer tribe's territory, while Qian Lianhuang rushed to the deeper area. At the crucial moment, they made the most concise and powerful decision. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Seeing the two girls leave, he was not worried. He did not need to worry about Qian Lianhuang at all. This woman's wisdom was even more mature than his. She was extremely experienced, and her strength was comparable to that of a beginner Saint King sorcerer. She was completely capable of obtaining the meteor treasure. Although Shi Jixin was slightly weaker, she had improved during this period of time. Coupled with her own strength and many innate treasures, there was no problem for her to protect herself. Moreover, it was time for her to train alone. A martial artist must have the ability to face danger independently. Most importantly, the explosion of the light ball meant that the heavenly treasure was about to descend. Just the prelude was already so shocking. It was completely imaginable how powerful the real heavenly treasure would be. When the time came, there would be a fierce battle. Not to mention the two girls. Even he did not have the slightest confidence. It was not the confidence to seize the heavenly treasure, but the confidence to protect his life. But it was very exciting. This feeling made him very excited. The more violent the wind and waves, the more bravely one had to face them. This was a true martial artist. He dared to challenge everything. The scattering of the meteor treasure was the prelude to the hot land. With this as the center, the scattering of the treasure had confirmed that this was the opportunity for the heavenly treasure to descend. With it, as the center point, a meteor shower of rare treasures spread out, causing every single expert to be on guard. Their auras condensed. The real heavenly treasure was about to break out of the cocoon as the light ball exploded to the extreme. And this would be the most tragic battle. Who would be able to obtain the heavenly treasure? In the depths of the wizard tribe's territory, in a quiet forest, Lin Feng looked at Jin Ji and shrugged helplessly. Compared to the hot land, which was currently in chaos and bustling with noise and excitement, this place was quiet and unconcerned. "It's really over there," Lin Feng said softly. Actually, he had already felt that the possibility of it being the hot land was much higher. After all, this place felt too strange and eerie. And with Gu Sheng's appearance, he was already 90% sure. With his sensing ability, he naturally would not be wrong. "Looks like I'm not fated to be with the heavenly treasure," Jin Ji said with a faint smile. There was no disappointment in his expression. It was within his expectations. But there are many meteor treasures scattering in all directions. "We could try our luck," Lin Feng said casually. The simplest cooperation between the main body and the doppelganger was that the main body could clearly see and feel what was happening in the doppelganger's mind. "That's good too," Jin Ji said with a smile. "Maybe I'm fated to be with these meteor treasures." "I think so too." Lin Feng also smiled. The atmosphere became much more relaxed as they joked around. However, at this moment, Lin Feng was suddenly startled. Then, Jin Ji's eyes widened as he turned to look. Qi, an astonishing force, carrying a resplendent radiance, dragging a trail of afterimages behind it, streaked across the sky in an arc. Under the astonished gazes of the two, it actually fell from the sky. Bang! A spiky ball, emitting a bright red light, blasted a huge hole 50 meters in front of them. Lin Feng and Jin Ji stared blankly ahead, unable to react. Was this a joke? Chapter 1299. A bright red color. It was not the red color of the earth rank, but the powerful aura of the heaven rank. Lin Feng was a little dazed and suddenly smiled bitterly. It was like planting flowers but not blooming, unintentionally planting willows, and the willows grew. He had already guessed that he would not gain anything here, but it was a possibility after all, a dark horse. In a hot place, to obtain a heavenly treasure, one had to fight, and have extremely good luck. But here, as long as a heavenly treasure descended, he would be able to reap a great harvest. Even if the probability was less than 0, 1%, it was still a possibility. Who would have thought that instead of a heavenly treasure, he would obtain a meteor treasure, and a heaven rank 1 at that? It was completely unexpected. Even if it was only a red rank, its ability was extraordinary. Compared to an earth rank black rank innate treasure, it was a level higher. Heaven rank was a true saint rank. My luck is too good. Lin Feng suddenly smiled. Although there were more than 100 meteor treasures, most of them were earth rank. According to his senses, there were only 10 to 15 heaven rank innate treasures, which was not a lot. But there was one in front of him. The two looked at each other and smiled knowingly. It's yours, Brother Jean. Lin Feng's eyes flickered, and he smiled lightly. No, it should be yours. Jin Ji shook his head and said seriously, I can't unleash the power of a heaven-ranked treasure with my strength. It was like they were pushing each other. The better their relationship, the harder it was to choose at this moment. Lin Feng looked at Jin Ji and said softly, You need it more than I do. I already have a heaven-ranked treasure. Moreover, you asked to come here, so you and it are quite fated. It was not a lie. No one would complain about having too many heaven-ranked treasures, but he did not really need it urgently. Refining it was one thing, mastering it was another, and he did not have much time. In comparison, this heaven-ranked treasure was more effective for Jin Ji. Absolutely not. Jin Ji's expression was serious. If not for Brother Lin leading the way, I would not have been able to reach such a deep place, let alone obtain the treasure. This heaven-ranked treasure is more worthy of being in your control. The two of them looked at each other, but they couldn't see any deliberate thoughts in each other's eyes. These words came from the bottom of his heart. Suddenly, the two of them could not help but laugh. If it was any other cultivator, they would have already started fighting over it. How could they possibly give it up like this? This was a heaven-ranked treasure, an existence of legends. With it, his strength would definitely rise to a whole new level. Let's hit it back first, Lin Feng said with a smile. All right, Jinji nodded. In a flash, he entered the pit and bent down to pick up the bright red spiky ball. Lin Feng smiled faintly as he watched. Suddenly, a sudden change occurred. Wah! A bright red light shone in an instant. The red light illuminated the sky, and even more so, it carried a dense earth origin energy. The sharp thorns were like malevolent existences, and the bright red light was reflected above like fresh blood. Feeling the enormous aura and energy that instantly merged with Jinji, Lin Feng was instantly shocked, and a faint smile suddenly appeared on his face. It was destined. This was Jinji's opportunity. Accompanied by the dense earth energy, this heaven-rank red class heaven-rank treasure was a priceless treasure to cultivators who were proficient in earth, but to him, its usefulness would be greatly reduced. Looking at Jinji, who was already enveloped by the red light, Lin Feng smiled cheerfully. There was no jealousy, only happiness for Jinji. I hope Jixin and Emperor Lian can also have such gains like Jinji, Lin Feng said softly. There was no doubt about the usefulness of a heaven-ranked treasure to a cultivator. Earth-ranked treasures were mainly used on star sector-level cultivators, and at most, they were within the saint level. To sage king-level cultivators, other than a few earth-ranked treasures, they were not very useful. But heaven-ranked treasures were different. This was a true saint level, a sage king level killing weapon, and for someone like Jinji who did not need to refine it, he could actively connect with the heaven-ranked treasure's spiritual consciousness and obtain its approval, and he could even unleash the heaven-ranked treasure's strongest power. Not only did it save time and effort, once the fusion was completed, Jinji would be able to use this heaven-ranked treasure perfectly, and his strength would definitely soar. At that time, the southern region would have another true powerhouse. It's fated. Lin Feng's eyes lit up slightly. If the three of them had not mentioned it, he would not have thought that he would come to the sorcerer realm so early, and he would not have encountered the descent of the heavenly treasure this time. Many things seemed to be arranged by two hands in the unseen world. Just as he was thinking in his heart, Lin Feng was suddenly stunned again. He raised his head in shock and looked at a flash of light in the distance. It was even denser and more abundant than before. While he was still in a daze, it streaked across the sky above his head. It was as fast as lightning, although its speed had become much weaker, and the afterimage seemed to be exhausted. But this was indeed a meteor treasure. Again, Lin Feng's heart beat wildly, and his eyes instantly lit up. It was slow to say, but it was fast at the same time. Almost like a conditioned reflex, the clone's resolute strength exploded with its strongest speed, and it chased after it at lightning speed. This time, he could clearly see the appearance of the treasure, and he could even sense that it was even stronger than before. Orange. It was a heaven-ranked orange treasure, an existence even stronger than Jinji's red-ranked treasure. What he lost at the swings, he gained at the swings. What was his would always be his. He could not escape. Whoosh! Lin Feng's eyes lit up. His body was like a whirlwind as he sped past. There was still an orange hail in front of his eyes. The afterimage slowly dimmed, but it was just within the range of his pursuit. Not more, not less, not far, not near, just enough for him to get it. This time, it's my opportunity. Lin Feng smiled calmly. In a hot place, expanding nonstop. It expanded like a balloon, and a meteor bloomed. The white light condensed and exploded with unimaginable energy. Wave after wave of powerful light shot out. The loss of energy did not affect the birth of the heavenly treasure at all. There was no loss of energy at all. Instead, it became denser and more intense. At this moment, every expert was waiting calmly. The strongest power had already been condensed in their hands, waiting for the critical moment to appear. Thunder and lightning clashed. Heaven and earth collapsed. The heavenly treasure, under everyone's gaze, suddenly exploded with the most brilliant fireworks. Boom! The sky seemed to explode into pieces. Lin Feng's expression changed. A buzzing sound rang in his ears. The terrifying sound wave attack seemed to shatter his heart. At this moment, the weaker experts had already vomited blood. Their expressions were extremely ugly. In the sky, a huge figure seemed to appear. The roar was indomitable. The ball of light exploded, and the light scattered. The illusory figure disappeared in an instant, turning into 3 brilliant lights. This is... Lin Feng's eyes widened. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The 3 rays of energy were purer, scarier, and more rapid than before. Like huge waves, they attacked every expert's spirit. All the experts' hearts were beating wildly. Their eyes were red as they stared at the heavenly treasure. At this moment, it finally appeared in front of everyone. There were actually 3 of them. However, in the next moment, out of everyone's expectations, the 3 brilliant rays of light suddenly separated. Chi! Chi! 2 of the rays of light whizzed away. Their speed was so fast that it was impossible to catch up. Only a few of the experts saw how the other 2 rays of light left. All that was left was a beam of resplendent light. It was like a giant pillar that reached the heavens, and it descended from the sky with a loud rumble. The terrifying chi waves and pressure were like a mountain that crazily pressed down. The terrifying power could destroy everything. Everyone's expression changed greatly. It's here. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Although it was a little unexpected, there was indeed a heavenly treasure descending in this hot land. 1/3 in the depths of the sorcerer territory. Not long after Lin Feng left, when Jinji was wrapped in the bright red light, suddenly the ground shook crazily. It was as if a natural disaster had descended. Lightning flashed and thunder roared. Thunder clouds rumbled in the sky, striking down crazily. If one raised their head to look at the sky, they would see the blood-red color that covered the entire area. A terrifying, murderous aura enveloped the area, as if it was going to destroy everything. A great battle had been triggered here. In the ground and in the air, there seemed to be remnants of the terrifying battle aura. If one could hear, they would be able to hear the mournful cries. If one could see, they would definitely be able to see the blood flowing in this wasteland. It was as if they were in hell on earth. This was a battlefield. Pa! Pa! The ground shook and the sky moved. The heavenly lightning overturned the entire area. Jinji, who was in the midst of comprehending and fusing, was completely unaware and unable to feel it. The entire area changed drastically. Countless heavenly lightning bolts fell from the sky, bombarding crazily. The energy flowed crazily, just like a catastrophe. Jinji had guessed correctly. This place, it was the fearsome land. Divine beasts were born with strong sensing abilities. They could seek good fortune and avoid calamity. Therefore, they would run as far as they could. And Jinji was trapped in it. Bzzz, rumble, thunder, and lightning fell on Jinji's body, but they were completely blocked by the heavenly treasure. The natural disaster here was densely packed. There was no way to avoid it. If Jinji did not coincidentally fuse with the heavenly treasure, he would have been struck by the thunder and lightning. Even if it was Lin Feng's undying body, it would be enough to make him suffer. This was the true, fearsome land. But the 2 of them just happened to avoid it. Amidst the thunder and lightning, a glaring light flew over from afar. The terrifying aura truly made one's heart palpitate. That was a power that did not belong to the mortal world. It surpassed the level of the martial saint. Its appearance was like the arrival of an emperor, causing the natural disasters to disappear in an instant. Or perhaps all of them were blocked by it. The thunder and lightning seemed to have been tamed and were extremely docile. Heavenly treasure. Wah! It floated in the air. The inner layer and the outer layer formed a strange space that resembled a bamboo sheet formation. Streams of energy appeared and enveloped the entire land. The appearance of various powers and energies made the entire fearsome land look brand new. Following the appearance of this mysterious heavenly treasure, the entire space underwent a unique transformation. It had come. Chapter 1300. In a hot place. Thunder rumbled in the sky, and a huge beam of light fell like a pillar to the sky. Whoosh! Whoosh! In an instant, a few figures dashed out, trying to intercept this heavenly treasure in midair. However, before they could touch it, they were bounced back by the terrifying force. They were lucky that they were only bounced back. Boom! The force was broken, and a ferocious beast broke through the barrier. The strength of a peak martial saint was comparable to that of a sage king sorcerer. When it broke through the force, all the experts exclaimed. But in an instant, gee, it was just grazed by the side, but it was as if it was cut by a sharp sword. The terrifying force blasted the ferocious beast into meat paste in the air. Everyone's eyes widened as they stared at this horrifying scene. Their hearts were filled with shock. It was extremely terrifying. This heavenly treasure was not ordinary. Many experts who were still thinking about it stopped in their tracks, and their faces turned pale. No one wanted to follow in the footsteps of that ferocious beast. The huge light pillar fell with a loud bang. It's finally here. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. The arrival of the heavenly treasure moved his heart, and the feeling of palpitating was extremely deep. However, he could not do anything at this moment. The ferocious beast from before was a bloody reality. Perhaps he had a strong feeling of the heavenly treasure, and forcibly intercepting it would not be life-threatening. But even if he could get past it with so many eyes looking at him, could he escape? Impulse was the devil, and his strength was not eye-catching here. He could only wait. Wait for an opportunity. Lin Feng thought to himself. The chances were very small. He wanted it, but it was not necessary. It was not worth it to lose his life for it. Boom! Thunder and lightning shook the earth. A terrifying force finally descended. The heavenly treasure landed on the ground. It was a huge light pillar, and it emitted a sparkling light. Powerful energy poured out wildly, forming an explosive aura through the ground. It was the purest power, the purest energy. With the huge light pillar as the center, it spread out in a circle. Boom, boom, boom. The few powerhouses who were closest to the light pillar instantly met with misfortune. The terrifying shockwave blasted a saint-level expert into smithereens, sweeping away everything in its path. Not even a speck of dust was left. That was close. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. The distance between him and the light pillar was considered relatively close. However, just now, when the others were getting closer, he had retreated a lot, walking and watching at the same time to avoid an unexpected disaster. Fortunately, he had acted at that time. Otherwise, no matter how strong his body was, he would have been seriously injured. He could see that the two Chevy liches who had threatened him had gotten too close to him due to their anxiousness. Now, they were vomiting blood, and their injuries were not light. One of them was a mid-level Saint King. Even someone as strong as the Sorcerer tribe was in such a state, let alone the other experts. However, after all, there was a limit to the release of Qi Jin. The light beam fell straight down, and after the impact and energy aura spread out, it instantly disappeared. No matter how strong the energy was, it had already been depleted due to the distance and the resistance of the experts. At this moment, the real battle had begun. Xiao! Xiao! So! One by one, silhouettes dashed out. Their eyes were filled with desire. There was no need to doubt the strength of the heavenly treasure. Even if it was only a third of its power, it could easily injure a Saint King expert. It was obvious how terrifying it was. If one could refine it, just by relying on this treasure, one would be able to dominate the entire Douling world. Who didn't want to? Especially in this chaotic world, strength was fate, controlling one's own fate. Boom, boom, countless origin energy blasted out, and Chi Jin exploded. The warriors at the front became live targets, and countless attacks from the celestial spirit masters followed like shadows, attacking their backs. However, this did not stop any of the powerful cultivators. More powerful cultivators charged forward with no regard for their lives. Most of them were from the sorcerer tribe. Their powerful physiques allowed the sorcerer tribe to possess strong enough bodies to snatch the heavenly treasure. Chaotic battle. Close combat against close combat. Close combat against close combat. There were even celestial spirit masters attacking from the outside of a light pillar. The hot land was boiling with heat. As expected, Lin Feng's eyes flickered slightly. Fortunately, he did not act rashly. Otherwise, he would be forced to fight even if he did not want to. Even if he wanted to escape, there was no way out. Those in front were surrounded by those behind, and those behind were surrounded by those behind. This place was in complete chaos. Inside and outside, the flames of war were boiling, and the soldiers were in chaos. Before any of the experts touched the huge light pillar, there were already corpses everywhere. There were countless casualties. Oh, Lin Feng's eyes lit up instantly. Sorcerer Tribe Territory, Ancestral Sorcerer Palace. Wearing a gold-threaded robe, Di Jiang had his hands behind his back, looking up at the starry sky. The shining light of the 12 ancestral sorcerer stone statues gathered at the top, reflecting the brightest stars in the starry sky. At this moment, the starry sky was shining like the sun, and an amazing power was radiating. It corresponded with Di Jiang from afar, forming a subtle connection. The aura and energy became extremely powerful. It caused Hutu and Xianming, who were behind, to be distracted and terrified. They were at the peak of the Saint King level. In an instant, a beam of light appeared in the sky far away, as if it was far away, but in an instant, it came down like a shooting star. With amazing energy, it drew the most beautiful arc in the world, leaving a tail shadow, and flew toward the Sorcerer King, Di Jiang. Swoosh! Di Jiang's eyes lit up instantly. He raised his eyebrows proudly and suddenly shouted loudly. Bang! An amazing aura burst out, which was even more powerful than the pure energy of Hutu and Xianming. The terrifying energy shocked the world, and the 12 ancestral sorcerer stone statues seemed to be shaking. The horrifying aura of the earth and the flying light seemed to have built a bridge. They communicated with each other with the purest energy. Come! Di Jiang shouted fiercely. A strong aura surrounded his body, and the figure of ancestral sorcerer Di Jiang appeared clearly behind him. At this moment, it seemed to have merged into one, releasing a different kind of energy. Di Jiang's face was stern and proud. He stretched out his hands and suddenly opened them. Bang! A beam of light appeared instantly. It was an arc, the arc of the sky, in the shape of a crescent moon. Extremely powerful energy was shining, and the sharp blade was so thin that the edge couldn't be seen, but the sharpness of it was terrifying. The dazzling light seemed to be able to cut the world and the entire Douling world. It was the real extreme sharpness. Ha! Ha ha! He laughed wildly. Di Jiang laughed arrogantly, and he didn't hide the excitement and craziness in his heart. Light flashed. At this moment, Di Jiang held his hands, and the energy of his aura and the original star power merged with each other, creating a connection. The light sparkled, covering Di Jiang's body completely. It was illusory, but his aura had completely changed. Hutu and Xianming opened their eyes wide, and they were still confused. Before this, they had advised Di Jiang to fight for the heavenly treasure, but he didn't succeed. At that time, they didn't understand what Di Jiang had said. But now, what Di Jiang had said was like a thunderclap, which made the two of them tremble from the bottom of their hearts, and they were deeply frightened. If it's destined to be me, it will come to me. Di Jiang's Pang Ran body was arrogant and confident. At this moment, the two of them finally understood what it meant. This was the strongest man in the Do Ling world. It was the will of heaven, in the depths of the wizard territory. It should be around here. Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and he floated in the air, looking around. Following the traces of the afterimage, he looked for the heavenly rank orange meteor rare treasure. Although he didn't have the same feeling as the heavenly treasure, his doppelganger was just a doppelganger. However, he could roughly estimate the area where the meteor rare treasure had landed. He searched patiently. Lin Feng wasn't in a hurry, and he couldn't be in a hurry. Compared to the illusory heavenly treasure, the heaven-rank orange meteor heavenly treasure was an existence that he could see and touch. He had to get one first. I almost forgot. Lin Feng smiled and shook his head. It would be a waste of time if he had to search the Pang Ranlan one by one. There was someone who could help him. Come out, Wing. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. Wing, who was already at the saint level, was connected to his mind and followed him like a shadow when he summoned him. They were inseparable from each other and were extremely close. He had always let Wing cultivate with all his might, but he hadn't summoned him for a long time. Instead, Hong Ling helped him more. Don't worry, boss. Watch me. Wing's appearance was completely different from before. He was more confident and stronger. He had already transformed as a saint and could cultivate on his own. He could even transform into a human form easily. However, Wing still appeared in his most primitive form, because he knew what he had to do. Their minds were connected. They didn't need to speak and could communicate directly. Chi, chi, chi. The branches and leaves sank into the ground. Under the red and green light of Wing, countless winged insects spread out with Wing as the center point. Compared to when he was at the star sector level, Wing's winged insects were a whole level higher in both quality and quantity. He was quite strong now. When he was at the Star Lord level, he had hundreds of thousands of winged insects. When he was at the Star Realm level, he had over 1 million. Now, there were 10 million of them. Their strength is one level lower than Wing's. They are now at the Star Realm level, but they are only equivalent to a Star Realm level 1. Lin Feng's heart trembled. Even so, it was already shocking enough. Tens of millions of Star Realm level 1 winged insects. How shocking was that? I almost forgot. Lin Feng smiled faintly. Wing's encounter was not bad. Merging with the coiled wood origin seed was not much, but more importantly, Wing had completely merged with the Dragonfly Constellation's universe martial artist, Wu Chi's spirit, which contained all the mysteries and power of the universe martial artist. It wasn't any weaker than his own clone. Got it. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. In the blink of an eye, he found it. But it can't be. Lin Feng was stunned. What he found wasn't the heaven-rank orange innate treasure he saw before, but an earth-rank special innate treasure emitting golden light. It was indeed an unexpected gain. Chapter 1301. Golden Treasure. It was a special type. The most obvious characteristic of this treasure was one-time use. However, if it was used well, the power it could unleash could even be compared to a heaven-grade treasure. Like the power of demons, the golden treasure had a relatively strong ability and a high upper limit. However, its weakness was also very obvious. It could only be used once, and it also depended on whether it was suitable. Whoosh! Lin Feng suddenly dashed out. His speed was relatively fast, like a whirlwind. Of course, he could get Wing to retrieve the golden treasure, but many things might happen along the way. After all, this was the sorcerer territory. It was the territory of the sorcerer tribe, and sorcerer tribes could be seen everywhere. The sorcerer tribes that could live here were relatively powerful. There were many high-level martial saints and peak martial saints everywhere. If he let Wing retrieve the treasure, the chances of him getting it would be relatively small. He might as well let Wing do what he was best at. Search. If he could find one connate treasure, he could naturally find a second, or even a third or fourth one. Moreover, the chances were very high. Lin Feng's eyes were bright. The more ownerless items there were, the better. Any connate treasure was expensive, not to mention that there was a heaven-grade treasure among them. It was relatively attractive. Even if he couldn't use it, Shun, King Lu, King Yin, and the other experts of the southern region could use it. This was undoubtedly a great opportunity to increase the strength of the southern region. Fast! In just an instant, the golden connate treasure was in his hands. Without any pause, Lin Feng's eyes were shining as he sped to the other side. Just as he had guessed, the orange-grade, heaven-grade treasure that flew over his head was in this area. At this moment, he finally found it. Oh no, a sorcerer tribe member is approaching. Lin Feng's eyes were bright. With more than 10 million winged bugs, it was as if he had countless pairs of eyes in the sky, and he knew everything around him like the back of his hand. It was a Gomang sorcerer tribe member that was almost 100 meters tall. He seemed to have sensed something and was searching around. Most importantly, he was searching in the right direction. Wing, hold him back, Lin Feng shouted decisively. Okay. Lin Feng smiled when he heard the voice in his heart. With the winged insect strength, it was naturally unable to stop this Gomang shaman tribe expert. However, it was not difficult for it to delay him for a while. As expected, as the hundreds and thousands of winged insects appeared, the furious roars of the Gomang shaman tribe could be faintly heard in the void, and the aura of battle instantly erupted. The battle had begun. Very good. The corners of Lin Feng's mouth rose. Although he did not know what method Wing had used, it was a great opportunity for him to make this Gomang shaman tribe expert lose his cool and fight with the winged insect. As he flew closer and closer to the orange heaven-ranked treasure, his heart leaped with joy. At this moment, he was already at the same level as the Gomang shaman tribe. However, he was still fighting. It's mine. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. There was a huge crater in front of him, and there was a bright treasure lying in the middle of the crater. It was sparkling and translucent, and it was so beautiful that the 5 colors paled in comparison. There was a clear orange glow in the middle of the treasure. He could sense it very clearly. It was a very powerful energy aura. Ha! Lin Feng raised his hand, and the meteor treasure landed in his hand. The energy sense was very strong, but it did not have a direct connection with him. It was as if they were just ordinary friends. It seems that I'm not as lucky as Jin Ji. Lin Feng smiled calmly, not surprised. It was very difficult to be compatible with a heaven-ranked treasure. It was not that the stronger one was, the easier it was to be compatible. This was a kind of fate. The strength of a heaven-ranked treasure was related to its grade, but it was also important to be able to perfectly fuse with it and refine it. Even if he obtained a black rank heaven-ranked treasure, what was the use if he could not fuse with it? Whoosh! Lin Feng's expression was calm as he put away his orange heaven-tier rare treasure. He did not think too much and did not need to think too much. If it was destined to be his, then it could not escape. If it was not, there was no need to force it. Swoosh! Without stopping, Lin Feng left like the wind when he sensed that the peak sage of the Gomang shaman race was rapidly approaching. Although it was not difficult for him to defeat him with his strength, he had to seize every second. There was no need to waste a lot of time on the essence soul. After all, a battle was full of variables. Leaving was the best plan. 10 seconds later, angry roars could be heard in his ears. It was the language of the shaman race. Lin Feng smiled. Even if he didn't understand, he guessed that it wasn't anything good. He was probably cursing him. At this moment, he was far enough away from the Gomang shaman race expert. He could not sense him and would not chase after him. He had obtained a heaven-rank orange innate treasure. What he lost on the swings, he gained on the roundabouts. He had missed out on a heaven-rank red grade Xiantian treasure, but he had gained even more. 1 gold and 1 orange. He had gained a lot. Moreover, it was not over yet. Damn it! Wing's scolding voice sounded in his heart. Lin Feng smiled. This was the 3rd treasure that Wing had found. It had been taken by a shaman race expert. It was a white rank, earth rank, innate treasure. However, it was not of much use to him. Suddenly, Lin Feng frowned. Wing's line of sight quickly extended to the area he had just come from, which was where Ji was. He should be in the midst of fusing with the heaven-rank red innate treasure. However, he could not see his figure at all. All he saw was a strange, illusory color. The area had completely changed. What was going on? Lin Feng was stunned. A bright light flashed violently. Countless thick barriers formed a bamboo-like shape and rotated continuously under the influence of a terrifying energy in the center. It covered an extremely large area. The shocking centrifugal force created an illusory land, as if there was a great mystery. However, no matter how wonderful it was, it could not be compared to the place where his gaze was focused. Ji had disappeared. How could this be? Lin Feng's expression changed. He had only left for a short while, but the fearsome land had undergone such a huge change. Where did the barrier formation and the terrifying energy come from? What was going on with that intense light? Most importantly, where did Ji go? Could he be in danger? Cold sweat dripped down Lin Feng's forehead. His heart instantly tightened. If Ji was in danger, he would definitely have to bear a lot of responsibility. At this moment, the feeling in his heart came again. Wing's line of sight fell into his eyes. The black light was extremely bright. The familiar energy in the distance was undoubtedly the meteor rare treasure. Wing quickly spread out to search and found the fourth meteor rare treasure in a short period of time. He was not surprised. It was within his expectations. This place was far away from the Scorching Land. Even if the experts from the Scorching Land rushed over at their fastest speed, they would be too far away. However, with the help of Wing's ability, he could easily obtain more treasures in the surroundings. However, whoosh! Lin Feng rushed forward. His eyes were bright, and he did not hesitate at all. At this moment, nothing could compare to the mysterious barrier formation. It could not compare to Ji's sudden disappearance. He would rather give up these meteor rare treasures than let the others in the team encounter any danger. Since he had brought them here, he had to bear the responsibility, because he was the team leader. Wait for me, Brother Jin. Lin Feng's expression was serious. His eyes were burning. He had to find Ji as soon as possible. The longer he delayed, the greater the possibility of danger. Ancestral Magi Palace. Whoosh! Whoosh! Following the descent of the heavenly arc, it connected with the Dijiang. The light was dazzling. The entire Ancestral Magi Palace underwent a huge change. The light from the huge stone statues of the Ancestral Magi gathered to the peak. It was the most dazzling star in the starry sky, symbolizing the power of the Magi. Originally, the brightest and most eye-catching star in the starry sky was the Demon Emperor's star. However, following the blooming of the Magi's star, not only was it on par with the Demon Emperor's star, it had faintly surpassed it by a little. Boom! The power of heaven descended. Behind Dijiang, Hutu and Xianming opened their eyes wide, looking at the scene in front of them in horror. They had been speechless for a long time. From a moment the heavenly arc found Dijiang, to the moment when the light gathered and shrouded, the rapid surge of the aura seemed to contain a great mystery. Although they couldn't see anything under the light, they could feel that the energy was constantly being released. The heavenly arc's pang ran energy. So powerful. Hutu was shocked. Her face was solemn. So powerful. Is this the rare treasure of heaven? Xianming muttered to himself, looking silly. Become stronger. Dijiang's aura was constantly increasing. He was already standing at the peak of the Douling world. Now, Dijiang seemed to break through the sky and was increasing without limit. The heavenly arc was like a primer, attracting the power of heaven and earth. The 12 ancestral magi gathered everything, and the celestial bodies caused the confrontation between the magi and the demon clans to break in an instant. Just because of one person, Dijiang, how strong would he become? No one knew. Just like the second war between the magi and the demon clans, no one could have guessed that the magi would win the war. And the hero of that war was the transcendent existence in front of them, the highest position and leader of the magi, the Magi Emperor. In a hot place, 3 rare treasures. One fell toward Dijiang, which was the furthest away. The second fell toward the ominous land where Lin Feng was. The third fell straight toward the hot place. The fight for it was intense. Although more than 1/3 of the powerhouses went to pursue the other 2 rare treasures, the number of powerhouses who stayed here was still very shocking. Facing the rare treasures in the center, which were within reach, the giant flashing pillar made all the powerhouses go crazy. Bang, bang, bang. It was a mess. You hit me, I hit you. There was no distinction between friend and foe. Even between the Magi, there was no modesty at all. At this moment, all of their nature was exposed. Greed. Perhaps they were saints who were high above. However, in front of the rare treasures, all the glory of a saint was thrown aside. Everyone longed for power. The neutral martial artists were like that. The Magus Kings were like that. Gusheng was like that. Lin Feng was like that too. However, power did not necessarily mean that one had to obtain the rare treasures. At this moment, Lin Feng's lips curled up slightly. His eyes flashed, and he seemed to have a plan in mind. Chapter 1302. What were the chances of obtaining a heavenly treasure? Lin Feng was very clear. Extremely weak. Even if he were to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight, even if he were to wait for an opportunity, would he be able to grasp it? Simply put, if this light pillar were to fall into his hands, would he be able to protect it? With so many experts watching him, would he be able to break out of the encirclement? The answer was obviously no. Even if his fate with this light pillar was extremely strong, the palpitations in his heart were very strong, and he was even certain that if he could touch this light pillar, there was a 50% chance that he would be like Jinji, directly fusing with it and turning the heavenly treasure into a part of himself, unleashing its power. However, even if he had it, would he be able to fight against a group of enemies? After all, he was only at the peak of the saint level. His foundation was too weak. There are already more than 10 Saint King level experts here who have revealed their strength. Lin Feng was secretly shocked. At this moment, those who were hiding their presence or hiding in the dark were even harder to estimate, and the biggest threat was probably one of the 7 ancient gods of the ancient race. Gusheng. Like him, he had a connection with the heavenly treasure. However, he had the strength of a peak Saint King level expert. If nothing special happened, he would not be able to compete with him. He indeed had to wait for an opportunity. Even if there was only a 1 in 10,000 chance, he would not give up, or else he would have decisively gone to look for the heavenly treasure like the 2 girls. However, before that, he could completely place his focus elsewhere. For example, Origin Soul, Divine Beast Essence Blood, Vicious Beast Essence Blood, and Innate Treasures. Not only Saint level, but also the rarely seen Saint King level. The strength of the experts here was more terrifying than the previous one. Earth-ranked purple-grade innate treasures and white-grade innate treasures were not eye-catching at all. The experts who were killed while fighting over the heavenly treasures dropped Earth-ranked black-grade innate treasures were everywhere. However, no one would fight for it, even if it was just a matter of convenience. In front, a saint-level expert had just distracted himself to grab the white-level astral treasure beside him. But in the next second, he was blown away. Not only did he not get the white-level astral treasure, but he also lost his life. There was also a white-level and a black-level astral treasure. It could be said that he was extremely unlucky. Without tyrannical strength, how could he allow himself to be distracted in this kind of group battle? The battle became more and more intense, and the number of experts who died increased with each passing moment. A few experts were killed almost every moment. So many. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Even though he was an outsider, he could feel how rich the battlefield was. It was unimaginable. The Witch Clan's origin soul was like cabbage, and no one took a look at the Divine Beast's blood essence. There were dozens of the most precious heaven-ranked treasures on the battlefield. In terms of quality, it might not be as good as a meteor exotic treasure, but its quantity was terrifying. In the blink of an eye, the number had reached 3 digits. It was obvious how intense the battlefield was. Blood flowed like a river, and it was like hell on earth. Roar! The ferocious roar caused the earth to tremble. In the distant horizon, a violent blood lion flew over. Its huge body was not slow at all, and its pair of bone-chilling eyes were filled with killing intent. This terrifying aura had already reached the high-order Saint King realm, and to the masters who were fighting on the front lines at this moment, this was definitely the most powerful existence. Ferocious beast, frost blood dragon lion. Ice bloomed, forming a bone-chilling frost. The arrival of the frost blood dragon lion had truly opened up the white-hot battle for the light pillar. With its appearance, there was no doubt that the situation would change. At this moment, all the masters' gazes were focused, and they were extremely solemn. Lin Feng's eyes lit up, but he retreated lightly. He retreated instead of advancing. Lin Feng's expression was calm and composed. Sensing the aura, he found the direction with the fewest people. It was a cave covered in weeds, and he stepped into it instantly. "Come out, Wing." Lin Feng's eyes lit up. The heart's call made Wing, who had just retracted the wing bug, appear once again. With the soul of the contracted Fae connected, the saint rank Wing had even more power than before. Whether it was summoning or his own strength, he was already the best helper. Whoosh! Red and green light bloomed dazzlingly, and Lin Feng smiled. "It's up to you now, Wing." He spoke softly. Lin Feng looked at Wing. They didn't need to speak much to understand each other's intentions. They had fought side by side since they were young and had experienced countless life and death situations together. The one who understood his thoughts the most was Wing. "No problem, boss." Wing was very excited. However, he was able to display his ability once again. Branches and leaves shot out in a frenzy, spreading throughout the narrow cave. Soon, they covered the entire area. The winged bug burrowed into the ground and headed straight for the hot land. Countless gazes appeared once again, and Lin Feng's eyes were sparkling. In such a saint-level battle, the winged bug, which was only a first-order star sector grade, wasn't important at all. Plus, it was moving underground, so its concealment ability was rather strong. Most importantly, there were a lot of wing bugs. There were more than 10 million of them. Lin Feng launched his attack. It was an unconventional method of attack. Just as everyone was fighting for the watermelon, Lin Feng picked up the sesame instead. Although it wasn't far from the hot land, no one would pay attention to this lousy place at this moment, and there were no benefits at all. Moreover, why would Saint King be interested in a mere essence soul, divine beast essence blood, or even a black-grade connate treasure? Compared to heavenly treasures, these were indeed just sesame seeds. Bang! Boom! Crackle! Countless attacks flashed before Lin Feng's eyes. Lin Feng's expression changed slightly, and his heart raced. Even though he was mentally prepared, he was still shocked. Sharing the winged bug's vision, it was as if it was being attacked by all the powerful beings. He entered the battlefield. Of course, these attacks weren't really directed at the winged bug. In this group battle, where every second counted, a moment of carelessness was enough to be fatal. No powerful being would waste their attacks on a mere star sector grade bug. The attacks just now were just a ripple effect, but it was enough to kill the winged bug. However, it didn't matter. Compared to the number of winged insects, there were simply too many. At this moment, the number of treasures on the battlefield was also huge. Essence souls, connate treasures, divine beast essence blood, and even storage rings. All of them were left behind by saint-level powerful beings. Regardless of grade, there were already more than 200 of them, and they were still increasing. Even though the wing bug success rate was very small, the large area had increased the ratio. "It's here." Lin Feng's eyes suddenly lit up. The first batch of wing bugs broke through the encirclement. The black light was so dazzling at this moment. They brought along a black-grade connate treasure, rich colors of power and sparkling light. Lin Feng couldn't help but clench his fists. Everything was just as he had expected. The weaker they were, the more they could gain on this battlefield. If the winged bug carried the treasure out, the chances of leaving the battlefield alive was less than 1 in 10,000. But so what? It was fine as long as there were enough of them. If one time didn't work, 2 times. If 2 times didn't work, 3 times or 4 times. They weren't afraid of exhaustion at all. As the saying went, one could make a fortune without making a sound. While all the experts' gazes were focused on the light pillar and the Saint King-level ferocious beast, the frost blood dragon lion, Lin Feng had quietly obtained 10 treasures. Most of them were the sorcerer clan's origin souls, followed by the divine beast's blood essence and earth rank innate treasures. And this was just the beginning. Oh, it seems like the Witch King has made his move. Lin Feng's eyes lit up slightly. Through the winged bug's line of sight, he could see a supernatural being that was 100 meters tall. It was exactly the same as the Shibai Lich that had threatened him before, but its power was deeper and purer. Its aura was even more powerful than the Saint King-level ferocious beast. It wasn't just its power, but also its aura and the feeling of being superior. The appearance of the ferocious beast, the Frostblood Draconic Lion, caused the situation to heat up. The pillar of light stood tall and upright, forming a white barrier around it. Whoever could break through first would have a considerable chance of success. However, there weren't many powerful beings who could simultaneously attack the white barrier and defend against several powerful attacks at the same time. It was very difficult, but with the addition of a true Saint King-level powerhouse, the situation instantly changed. Whether it was the Frostblood Dragon Lion or the Witch King Shibai Lich, they all had the ability. And they weren't the only ones. Whoosh! Whoosh! Chi! Streaks of light and shadow appeared one after another. After the intense warm-up at the beginning, the real fight had begun. This was the stage of the Saint King-level powerhouses. They fought each other, and the explosive power was enough to destroy the heavens and the earth. Even the surrounding Saint-level powerhouses were affected. A white-hot situation, but to Lin Feng, it didn't matter. Standing on the outside, Lin Feng leaned against the dry cave wall and looked at the chaotic battle. He was rather relaxed. 28. Lin Feng counted. Whether it was Saint or Saint King level, the slaughter of the winged bug was a one-time thing. On the contrary, with the rise of the Saint King level attacks, many Heaven Spirit Masters tactfully stopped attacking, afraid of offending the Saint King level powerhouses. This increased the chances of the winged bug surviving. The speed of obtaining treasures increased by several times in the blink of an eye. 31, 32, 33. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Although there wasn't anything too valuable, many little drops made an ocean, and there were quite a lot of them. Moreover, as there were more things, there would always be something good. Oh, a ring? Lin Feng's eyes lit up. It was a simple and unadorned ring. The patterns and colors on it were very strange, and there were unknown words engraved on it. He didn't know which neutral force it belonged to, but it was obviously a storage ring. The craftsmanship and energy felt quite good. Just as he was observing, Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. He looked at the entrance of the cave. The 10 winged bugs had carried an origin soul that was extremely rich in energy. It was even purer and larger. A Saint King level origin soul. Huh! Lin Feng couldn't help but smile. Does this count as me profiting from a battle? After obtaining a Saint King level origin soul, Lin Feng felt quite good. Even if he couldn't obtain any more battle results in the end, just these treasures alone made this trip worthwhile. He had profited greatly. Chapter 1303. Witch Clan Realm, Fierce Ground. After obtaining an Earth-ranked gold treasure and a Heaven-ranked orange treasure, Lin Feng decisively stopped and rushed over as fast as he could. However, just as what he saw in the winged insect's eyes, this place had already changed greatly. The huge forest seemed to have been leveled overnight. Not even its roots were left. The air was emitting a strong, evil aura, and the smell of blood was extremely strong. It was like purgatory on earth. Hey, hey! The roars of malicious spirits came from beside his ears. There were countless phantoms in front of him that seemed to be attacking him. They had ugly faces and disgusting smells. The sky had completely changed color. What was going on? Lin Feng's eyes were filled with doubt. However, at this moment, the illusion in front of him was attacking rapidly. He could not afford to be distracted at all. He had to deal with the danger first. Break! Lin Feng's eyes focused. The star source energy was released, and his mind was focused. Affirm was the most direct and effective way to deal with illusions. However, Lin Feng's eyes revealed surprise. It's not an illusion? Unexpectedly, these malicious ghost-like existences flickered and did not disappear before his eyes. Instead, they still pounced on him with bared fangs and brandished claws. The shrill cries entered his ears, as if they were shattering his eardrums. It was as if he had entered hell. Lin Feng frowned. It was very real. The ghostly figures in front of him moved, and their auras were faintly discernible. It was as if real ghosts had been reborn. What's going on? Lin Feng raised a question in his mind, and his expression slowly turned serious. In front of him, these ghosts and illusions passed through him like fog, but they did not pose any threat. Inexplicably, his heart suddenly trembled, and he reflexively shot his body to the side. Chi! As if he had been slashed by a sharp sword, a bloody groove appeared on his body, and blood flowed out. Lin Feng's expression changed. He was injured. Boom! The star source energy suddenly exploded, and Lin Feng instantly turned around. However, the ghost just now seemed to have disappeared in the blink of an eye, as if it did not exist at all. Lin Feng's expression changed, and a chill rose up in his heart. His gaze was profound, but this time his reaction was extremely fast. Step! Leaping off the ground, a vicious aura pierced through the place where he had just been. Reaching out his hand, Lin Feng's eyes flashed as star source energy condensed and burst out. Pung! The ultimate explosion landed. Pa! The ghost exploded due to the force of the blow. At that moment, there seemed to be a series of wails around them, accompanied by shrill screams. In an instant, countless ghosts shot out from the surroundings, heading straight for Lin Feng, who was in midair. Their attacks were fast and fierce. Good! Lin Feng's eyes lit up. The most annoying thing was a sneaky ambush like just now. He had nothing to fear from such a frontal attack. Clang! The amethyst spear shone brightly. During this period of time, although he was unable to comprehend the spear move clouds rise, his strength had still steadily increased. Lin Feng brandished his amethyst spear. In an instant, his arrogance soared to the clouds, sweeping everything before him. How could a mere ghost be stopped? One person, one spear. Lin Feng was excited to fight, but he was more and more puzzled. Very calm. However, this place was very strange. There were endless ghosts, wave after wave of attacks, as if there was no end. Most importantly, some of the ghosts did not have any attack power. They were just illusions. However, some of their attack power was as if they were real. There were strong and weak attacks. There were no characteristics at all. He could only rely on his intuition to barely distinguish them. There must be a demon when things are abnormal. This is indeed a fierce place. No wonder all the divine beasts fled. Lin Feng frowned slightly. At this moment, he understood something in his heart. He seemed to have fallen into a trap. But how did the trap here change? And these inexplicable ghosts, in the end? Lin Feng thought, but his movements were not slow at all. He raised his spear and swung it down. His body was full of courage, and those evil ghosts could not get close to him at all. The consumption of star source energy was enormous, but he had to face these illusions that seemed real and illusory. His eyes slowly lit up. Lin Feng muttered to himself. Soon, he came up with a plan. Most likely, it has a lot to do with the birth of the heavenly treasure. Lin Feng pursed his lips. If it had nothing to do with it, how could it be so coincidental? It did not change earlier or later, but chose to change at this time? There must be a connection between them. However, he could not say what exactly was going on. As Lin Feng attacked, he looked at the ground and saw that it was completely blood-red. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat as he replayed the scene he saw earlier in his mind. Each scene gave him a sense of déjà vu battlefield. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. These ferocious ghosts attacked like vengeful spirits who had died with their eyes wide open. He thought of what the wing bug saw just now. He could clearly see a huge stone wall array operating under the guidance of a strange energy. The location was where he and Jinji were before. However, right now, he could not see it at all. What a powerful illusion technique. Lin Feng's heart trembled. At this moment, he was sure that he was in deep trouble. The doppelganger was different from the original body. Perhaps the doppelganger was stronger than the original body, but in terms of breaking this kind of trap and resisting illusions, the doppelganger was far inferior to the original body. Such a powerful illusion must be at least at the Saint King level. It was half illusion and half reality. If he could break it, it would be an illusion, but if he could not, just like now, the attacks were real. No, Lin Feng shuddered inwardly. If this continues, I will exhaust my strength sooner or later. Pah! Closing his eyes, Lin Feng reacted quickly. The longer this dragged on, the more disadvantageous it would be for him. He had to break these illusions as soon as possible. His mind was calm, and everything around him was clear. Even though there were tens of thousands of chaotic auras attacking him, he would rather suffer a little injury than waste any more time. He had to break it. Pong, pong. Heavy blows landed on his body again and again. Lin Feng's face turned pale. He grunted a few times. The protection of his star source strength could not completely resist these ghostly forces. At this moment, he did not use any defensive techniques. He even gave up on the 7 ultimate heavenly star bead. This was because he had to use his purest heart to sense, using the most realistic feelings and pain to stimulate himself. There, Lin Feng was moved. Even if the interference was great, his heart would not be shaken. Xiao, like a sharp arrow, Lin Feng's expression was solemn. The attacks around him were like wind and rain, bombarding his body, but he did not care at all. To him, even if he was injured, he had to find the real way out and find the secret to break this illusion. He could not delay any longer. It was a short distance, but it felt like torture. However, the clear distance allowed him to clear his mind and pass through the illusion. In an instant, his body seemed to have broken free from its shackles, and the whole world was peaceful. Although the energy around him was clearer and more powerful, there were fewer distracting thoughts and illusions. Ta! Lin Feng stepped on the ground. It was real. This time it was real. Whoosh! Opening his eyes and looking at everything in front of him, Lin Feng's eyes flickered slightly. This was not unexpected. At this moment, he was indeed here. It was the same scene as what the wing bug had seen before. A huge wall of earth and stone stood tall like bamboo, with no end in sight. A strange energy circulated in this formation, driving the earth and stone walls to move at an extremely fast speed. Forward, backward, layer by layer, stack by stack. It was difficult to distinguish between reality and illusion. This was obviously a large formation. Although he did not know how it was formed, he was certain that there must be a great secret behind it. Brother Jean, we should be trapped in the formation, Lin Feng said softly. The formation covered a large area, enveloping the entire land. The strange energy in the formation not only drove the formation, but also seeped out like fog, constantly releasing in the surroundings, little by little, forming a dense fog. Illusion, Lin Feng muttered. The illusion he saw just now was the transformation of the formation's power. Just the energy alone was already so shocking. Needless to say, this huge stone wall formation must be even more terrifying. The leakage of energy dyed the sky into a misty color. The land was a blood-red color, and he seemed to be able to hear the cries of ghosts and howls of wolves. This place was like a real land of danger descending. The scenery was extremely strange. To enter, or not to enter? Phew. Exhaling lightly, Lin Feng's expression was solemn as he sat cross-legged. Closing his eyes, he absorbed the chi of heaven and earth to recover the star source energy that he had consumed before, and also to recover his own condition, adjusting his breathing to the peak of his strength. As for the external injuries he had suffered just now, he did not need to care about them at all. With his body's extraordinary recovery ability, he could recover in a short time. In fact, there was no need to consider at all. He did not have a second choice. He had to enter. There was more than a 90% chance that Jin Ji would be trapped in the formation. As the team leader, he had the responsibility to protect his safety. As a friend and brother, he could not watch him die and let him die alone. But before that, he had to recover his strength and adjust to the best condition. Because this trip would be very difficult, even 9 deaths and 1 life. In a hot place, the situation had truly entered a white-hot state. From the fight between the Saint-level powerhouses to the battle between the Saint-level powerhouses to the battle between the Saint-level powerhouses, everything had been simplified. Although many Saint-level powerhouses still wanted to obtain the heavenly treasure and were still hoping for a fluke, the difference in strength was a clear indication of reality. In front of the Saint-level powerhouses were nothing at all. Boom, boom, boom. The ferocious beast Frost Blood Dragon Lion and the Shi-Bai corpse which tribe fought fiercely, neither giving way to the other. At this moment, the Saint-level powerhouses who had entered the battlefield were even more fearless, driving away all the Saint-level powerhouses who stood in their way without mercy. To them, this was just a matter of lifting a hand. There were light injuries, serious injuries, and many were killed. Since they had the courage to enter and fight for the heavenly treasure, they could imagine this ending. Corpses were everywhere. At this moment, the battlefield had officially entered the second part of the fierce battle. The Saint-level powerhouses were gradually eliminated, and many of the weaker Saint-level powerhouses had also suffered misfortune. Among them were the 2 Saint-level Shi-Bai corpse which tribe members who had threatened Lin Feng earlier. Pong, pong. The 2 powerful corpse which tribe members were killed almost at the same time. Among the first batch of powerhouses to enter the battlefield, the 2 Shi-Bai corpse which tribe members were undoubtedly stronger. They were also the ones closest to the light pillar, so naturally, they became cannon fodder. The one who struck first had the advantage, but he might not have the last laugh. Pa! Pa! 2 Saint-level essence souls appeared, and a different kind of light flickered. Whoosh! Lin Feng's eyes instantly lit up. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.